Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326. Tony, what the hell did I create again? Exclamation mark. Natasha, who was held by Link with one hand, was lightly placed on the ground by Link before she could say thank you. Then he flapped his wings and flew up, but he still kicked his feet twice to gain momentum. Seeing the truck containing Vision's body pressing heavily against a taxi, Link rushed up quickly and used a shield to counter, knocking the overturned truck back. The driver was stunned, and a young man and woman in the back seat of the taxi thanked Link blankly. Link turned around and waved, but was stunned when he saw them. The young man and woman were wearing couple outfits, and unlike the E-stations on the street, they had Western faces. Link could be more certain that the two young men were Americans, because Link had seen them. When fighting Hulk and Abomination, Link rescued them from a car. Unexpectedly, on the other side of the earth, Link saved them again in a foreign country. The two men and women who had nothing to do and were traveling in Korea laughed dryly. Link, what a coincidence. Before they finished talking, Link sped away like a gust of wind. The back was already in chaos, with a bunch of cars squeezed together, and some of the cars were already in a terrible state. Swish. Link jumped around in the car, pulling out the people who were squeezed in the car because of the car accident from the windows. More than a dozen people were rescued in a short time. Only then was there a moment of peace. Panting, Link kicked open the back door of the truck and pulled Vision's body out. Midona cheered, "It's over. Let's go back." Natasha nodded as she listened to the sirens getting closer. Link and Natasha returned to New York with Vision's body. Rogers and Hawkeye were still tracking Ultron. When they came back, they saw Banner with a weird look on his face, and Tony, whose face already said I'm going to make a big news. The three Zelda princesses were also there. Wanda was pushing a wheelchair and was also at the scene with her brother. As soon as they saw Link coming back, the three princesses and a Peppa hurried over to ask about his well-being. Link already had two little lives hanging on his body, and now there was another brave man in his arms, who was chattering with Link about how he would protect the three princesses. Tony looked at the Vision in the cabin, raised his head and said, "Let me show you something." He raised his hand, and an orange-yellow program appeared in the air. Peppa clapped his hands in shock. "What an amazing lamp." Tony gritted his teeth. "What lamp?" "This is Friday." Peppa clapped his hands in shock. "Awesome. What is Friday?" Tony decided not to respond to Peppa's words, but continued to explain. "Friday, my new artificial intelligence butler. I thought she was swallowed by Ultron, but she survived. She has been hiding in the network system, protecting the nuclear missile codes and other confidential things from being stolen by Ultron. We are fighting. Friday is also fighting, and the difficulty is no less than ours. She has been hiding carefully, but I still found her. After all, the first to find the child are her parents. This may provide some inspiration for our plan. Perhaps we can put Friday into this body made of vibranium." Natasha stopped him immediately, her face serious. "One Ultron is troublesome enough. Are you going to create a new one?" Tony shook his head, his face more solemn than ever. "No, this is our chance to defeat Ultron. Friday was not defeated by Ultron, so she has the potential to defeat Ultron." Natasha looked at Banner. "Have you been convinced?" Banner's face was a little complicated. "To be honest, I'm willing to try again. Failure is also experience. Although Ultron is an accident, we may be able to." Natasha looked at Link again. Link still looked calm and listened to Peppa's alien language. "Princess, what about you?" Zelda was eager to try. "In fact, we can really try again." She explained a lot of professional technical terms. Natasha stopped asking and said, "Tony, Banner, you are the world's top scientists. At this time, I can only trust you." Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were a little scared. So Banner and Tony began to tinker with how to integrate Friday's thoughts into Vision's body. Zelda was also helping. Although her talent was definitely not as good as the two genius scientists, she also improved the efficiency of thought fusion a lot. Link didn't have much psychological pressure and played with the two princesses, Sky and Washan. He just had to wait. But he felt something was wrong. Although the plot was developing normally according to the time, Link seemed to have overlooked a little bit of the variables. Soon, the preparations were completed. Natasha returned to her lounge. She was afraid of creating another Ultron, so she decided not to watch it, otherwise she would be angry to death. Tony was also a little nervous. After all, he had messed up once. Okay, Zelda, power on. A large amount of electricity was seen supplying to Vision's body. Beep beep, warning of power shortage. Link was fed a belly full of food by the two princesses and felt that he had enough strength. So he walked up, stretched out his hand, and the power of thunder penetrated into Vision's body. Bang! The door was knocked open. Rogers and Hawkeye rushed in and angrily said, "What are you doing?" and rushed to organize. At this time, Thor also broke in through the window. But Link's large amount of electricity penetrated into Vision's body, and suddenly a strong light was dazzling. Mind implantation is complete. Vision's body is activated. Rogers looked at Link, who was a little tired, and shook his head. "You shouldn't have listened to Tony. What if?" Suddenly there was a piercing scream. Link was knocked away. He hit the wall like a pancake. Who is hitting me?" Link looked confused. Tony held his head. "It's over." Failed again. Link was attacked, which made everyone tense. Everyone thought that a new mechanical villain who wanted to destroy mankind was about to appear. Banner was preparing to transform, and Tony shouted, "Jarvis!" The Washan princess raised her sword, and Zelda's bird quickly flew through the wall. Rogers immediately said, "Prepare to attack." But Thor shouted, "Wait." At this time, everyone saw a strange scene, and the murderous atmosphere immediately disappeared, and became a little awkward. Link rubbed his shoulders, and walked out of the hole in the wall. Suddenly, his eyes were stunned. Inside the cabin, a red-skinned man was seen with his arms folded across his chest, looking at Link with tearful eyes, as if he was about to cry at any moment. A vision? But this vision was different from what Link remembered, and also different from the physical appearance of the man when Link was first carried in. Chapter 327, The Love and Hate Between Female Vision and Link. This red-skinned person is tall and slender, with soft lines and cute facial features. He has short dark blue hair. He looked at Link in horror, shrinking his body, as if Link had done something terrible to him. Female Vision! Exclamation mark. "Someone save me!" Female Vision was so scared that she was about to cry. Link's mind made a sound, and he finally realized that something was wrong. Although Jarvis is an artificial intelligence, according to Tony's settings, artificial intelligence is also divided into male and female. Friday is a female artificial intelligence, implanted in Vision's body. Some wonderful changes occurred. Link stared blankly at the bewildered Scarlet Witch. He shouted in his heart, "I'm sorry, Wanda. Your future husband is gone." Hawkeye didn't move his head, and looked at Rogers with confused pupils. "Captain, are we going to attack?" This question made Rogers a little toothache. Tony walked over tentatively, tilted his head and asked, "Kit, are you okay?" The female Vision looked at Tony pitifully, and trembled as she cried, "Boss Stark, I am afraid." Seeing this strange reaction, Zelda hurriedly asked, "What are you afraid of?" The female Vision pointed at Link with a strange look on his face, trembling a little. I'm afraid of him." Midona grabbed Link's face angrily. "Tell me, what did you do to this girl? You've gone too far. It's obviously enough for Zelda and I to do it. I'm crying." Humph. Link dodged, and regardless of his taciturn personality, he shouted, "Stop it, she was just born." Link didn't know why the female Vision was afraid of him. Was the power too high? Seeing everyone looking at her, the female Vision felt more confident, and said in a hoarse voice, "Link, he bit me." Link, Zelda and others. Avengers. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Midona looked silly, and Fang and Pepper had the same expression, with big question marks on their heads. Seeing that everyone was puzzled, the female Vision timidly explained, "On the Sky Carrier. Link, scare me is not enough, he also bit me." The Avengers finally reacted. Loki was stunned and looked at Link in shock. Before, when Loki was still a villain, Link and others were on the Sky Carrier, and Pepper was waving the Mind Gem staff around and controlling several people. Link tried to let the Mind Gem staff contact the control of everyone, but he didn't know how to control it. Out of threat, he bit the staff. He frightened an Infinity Stone so much that it immediately released the control of others. That incident itself was very strange. What's even more strange is that it left such a serious psychological trauma on the female Vision. Link stepped forward and explained, "This Vision quickly shrank his legs and took 2 steps back, wrapping himself up into a small ball. Seeing this, Link could only retreat quickly. Hawkeye coughed twice and asked, "Do you want to destroy humanity?" So everyone in Vision stared at him, as if he were a fool. Hawkeye was furious and shouted, "Hurry up and tell me." Vision was speechless. "Why should I destroy humanity?" Rogers was still a little wary because of Ultron's matter. He didn't know whether the current pitiful Vision was a clever disguise. On the surface, she was a weak girl, but in fact, she was still an emotionless villain. At this time, Natasha heard the noise and walked in. She thought a fight had started, but when she entered the door, she was stunned when she saw the female Vision. Close the door. Open it again. Only then did she rub her eyes and believe the facts in front of her. Natasha said in confusion, "Is this an alien girl?" Tony said, "The one you carried in." Natasha. Vision came down timidly. She could see that Rogers and Natasha didn't trust her. Then, she saw Thor's hammer on the ground. She walked over and grabbed the hammer handle. Thor raised his eyebrows. He was a little uneasy. "It's really annoying to pick it up." Thor felt like vomiting blood. I saw this slender female Vision, who was a little weak and cowardly, lightly lifted Mjolnir up like Link did in the past. Everyone had an expression of jumping eyes. "I don't believe in love anymore." Thor cried silently in his heart. But he was a male chauvinist, and he swallowed his blood and tears. So he forced a smile and said, "It is almost certain this new life is on our side." Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Only people with pure and noble hearts can pick it up. This is enough to prove Vision's position. Loki walked over with a smile and looked at the female Vision. Everyone accepted the female Vision so blindly. Wanda thought it was very funny, but only Link knew that she was the one who sacrificed the most in this matter. Female Vision is a girl who is easy to understand. She is afraid of Link, depends on Tony, and likes Loki. She has been a partner with Loki for a long time during the period when she was the Mind Gem. She is easily shy and quickly got herself a dress of the same style as the Sky Princess and then turned into a human. She is a beautiful woman with soft eyes and a gentle temper, who looks like she is in her 20s. Link tried to ease the tension between him and Vision. But no matter what, Vision is particularly afraid of Link and worried that he will eat her. Tony comforted him like an old father. "There is no need to be like this. Link is a very kind person. And you have vibranium on you. Link can't bite it." He hesitated. "I think so." But the result made Vision even more scared. Finally, the genius mid-owner came up with a good way for Link and Vision to get along harmoniously. Link transformed into a wolf with a black upper body and a white lower body. He walked over tentatively. Vision opened his mouth slightly. "It's a little wolf." Tony had a fatherly expression. This was transformed by Link. "Aren't you afraid?" Vision shook his head firmly and bravely touched Link's wolf head. Link breathed a sigh of relief. They finally made a reluctant reconciliation, right? At this time, Fang suddenly rushed over in extreme anger and bit Vision's finger fiercely. "Don't touch Link." In short, after a farce, Link and Vision made a reluctant reconciliation. The Avengers were ready to go and went to Sokovia. About to face Ultron, Vision became calm and said to everyone, "I'm different from him. I stand on the side of life, but he is different. He wants to solve the problems that bother him. He is in pain, but his pain will destroy the Earth. We can only destroy him." The fighter plane was getting closer and closer to Sokovia. Everyone carried Hawkeye on their backs and quietly thought, "We must find a way to prevent this man who set flags wildly from really dying." The weather outside is not very good, with dark clouds everywhere, indicating that a war is about to begin. Please support me. The idea of the female Vision comes from a picture, which can be found by searching Baidu Avengers. It is quite interesting. Chapter 328. The right hand has nowhere to go. Tony had hacked into the broadcast of Sokovia City and asked the people to evacuate quickly. But the appeal of the Avengers was obviously not enough to make the citizens who worked hard during the day abandon their daily life rhythm as a matter of course. Most of the panicked residents had evacuated the city, but there were still a few stubborn people who did not move. When they saw the strange and cold robots sweeping the streets, they immediately regretted it. The city was in chaos. A young mother was screaming and running with her child in her arms, and the child was crying even more shrilly because of the mother's panic. A robot behind her was chasing her calmly. She felt that her lungs were about to explode. She was helplessly hiding behind an old car and panting heavily. She was so frightened that she could not even hear the cry of her own child. The tall robot behind her raised his palm. The old car was torn apart. The young mother opened her eyes in horror, and her throat had lost her voice. And 3 more Ultron robots flew in the sky. She felt that her legs had lost the strength to stand up again. The robot in front of her punched the young mother in the face. She closed her eyes in despair. There was no pain, and then there was the sound of something hard falling to the ground. She heard the child stop crying, and opened her eyes blankly. She saw the robot in front of her, with a sharp blade sticking out of its chest, slashing towards it with a tearing sound. The robot fell to the ground in response. Link's hair was a little messy. Midona, who was sitting on Link's shoulder, shouted in the stiff Eastern European language she had just learned from her mobile phone, "Run away." Swish. The 3 Ultron robots in the sky saw Link appear, and immediately flew down, raising their fists, and rushing towards Link. And Link also jumped up suddenly, pulling the bullet time, and immediately shot 3 arrows, hitting the Ultron robot's head hard. Bullet time was lifted. The 3 broken robots hit the ground hard, and could no longer stand up. "Over there," the young mother shouted, and Link turned around, and saw another large number of Ultron robots rushing towards this side. Link pulled the woman up, and asked her to evacuate quickly, and he walked forward to meet the robot. "You again, Link." A slightly annoyed voice came from the robot. Midona covered her mouth. "Oh my god. Robots also hold grudges?" Ultron's voice came out from the mouths of these large numbers of robots at the same time, and the voices overlapped, and were very shocking. "Here is the place where you will die." Link did not have the habit of swearing at the enemy before a fight. 4 arrows appeared in his hand immediately, and he quickly pulled the bow and arrows and flew. The Ultron mechanical army also quickly surrounded him. The arrows penetrated 4 robots and fell down. A large group of robots behind them, either running or flying, rushed over their companions. The sound of glass breaking came from above, and more than a dozen Ultron robots jumped down from the tall building next to them. Midona held her face. "There are a lot of enemies." Yaya hugged Link's neck tightly, screaming, indicating that if Link couldn't bear it, she could help. Link smiled, and seeing the Ultron robots rushing over, he knew that the bow and arrow were useless at this time, so he put them away, and summoned the dragon scale sword. These Ultron robots were the product of a compromise for efficiency. They did not have the energy to fire lasers, and could not attack from a distance. This provided Link with some convenience. Fangire saw the dragon scale greatsword and shouted excitedly. Whoosh! Link twisted his feet, and exerted force on his waist. Just as the first wave of Ultron robots attacked, he swung out the dragon scale greatsword, and flames burst out with a whoosh, carrying the might of the greatsword. Boom boom. The waists of 2 Ultron robots were immediately cut open. The greatsword stretched out, plus Link's arm length, had an attack length of 3 meters. Swinging and slashing like this, it formed a large attack range of 6 meters in diameter. Ultron could not touch Link with his steel fist at all, and was cut in half by the high speed and high temperature sword blade. Where the slashing was, there was a harsh sound of steel rubbing against steel. Link spun at high speed, his long hair flying. Midona shouted happily, while Fangire felt a little dizzy, and buried her head in Link's neck. After spinning for more than 30 times, Link killed half of the Ultron robots. Crack, crack, crack. Under his feet were fragments of the Ultron robots. A few Ultron robots that survived by chance, with only their chests left, reached out to grab Link's ankles. Bang! While Link was spinning with his sword, his center of gravity was unstable, and he was pulled down by the Ultron robots under his feet, and the spinning slash ended. Of course, Link himself didn't have the strength to spin and slash anymore. He fell down and gasped. Seeing Link fall, a large number of robots rushed towards him. Link kicked away the half of the robot that pulled him down. At this moment, the enemies were already overwhelming him. If it was before, Link would have been able to clean them up with just a sword beam. Why hasn't the strength recovered yet? A blue light bomb appeared in Link's palm. Boom. The Ultron robots that rushed over, affected by the violent impact, exploded like fireworks. Group fight, group fight, group fight. Link thought of Yondu and immediately used the magnetic grabber. He controlled his master sword to fly into the air. Cluster, cluster, cluster. The master sword flew around Link at a high speed, leaving bright blade after images everywhere. The Ultron robots knocked down by the blue light bomb were stabbed in the forehead by the master sword before they could stand up, and their bodies were damaged and malfunctioned. The master sword was like a subway running underground, piercing through the mechanical heads one by one. The sharp blade cut through iron like mud. Even though Link was weak now, and the control of the magnetic gripper was insufficient, it was enough to smoothly cut open the brains of these crudely made Ultron robots. Boom. Hawkeye ran out of the building with a few panicked citizens, cursing, "There are so many enemies in the building." He rushed out in front of the people, rolled out, pulled the bowstring to the full, and prepared to launch a surprise attack on the Ultron robots outside. The street was in a mess, but there was not a single enemy standing up. Link sat in the middle of the road, panting, and around him were piles of broken Ultron robots. "You destroyed an entire army?" Hawkeye opened his mouth. The few enemies he encountered in the building were not worth mentioning. No wonder he heard the messy noises outside. Link spread his hands. It seems that Ultron really holds a grudge against Link and is taking extra care of him. In the sky, like vultures, a large number of Ultron robots were lingering, capturing Link and flying down. Link grabbed a fallen motorcycle on the side of the road and activated the magnetic grabber directly. He rushed towards Hawkeye and stretched out a hand. Hawkeye knew that Link had to separate from him, otherwise the large number of robots attracted by Link might hurt ordinary people. He thought Link came here to high-five him, so he stretched out his palm. "Try harder." His palm waved in the air, and Link's fingers lightly passed Hawkeye and took out a handful of explosive arrows from the quiver behind him. "Hawkeye." He turned around and smiled at Hawkeye, then rode the motorcycle and led a large number of murderous Ultron robots above his head away. Hawkeye raised his hand and scratched his head awkwardly. Thanks to Lily Aquarius for the 500 starting coins reward. Chapter 329 Flying a Kite. Tony found Ultron in the church. Seeing the huge body that Ultron had made for him, he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. "You secretly ate protein powder behind my back." Ultron looked at Tony coldly. "This is the body I made for myself with vibranium. The current body is iron black in color, huge in shape, and has a head like an alien creature. This Ultron, who looks like a human and has a human demeanor, but is completely different inside, makes Tony very uncomfortable." Tony touched his chin. "Really? But why did you make it so ugly? Or according to your strange mechanical thinking, you regard ugliness as beauty? This is understandable." Tony pointed at Ultron. "After all, you are the most hopelessly stupid AI in the world, who interprets the order to protect humanity as destroying humanity." Ultron punched Tony, and Tony also clasped his hands together, and a high temperature laser suddenly shot out. As a result, Ultron walked over against Tony's laser and grabbed Tony's throat. "Have you forgotten that my body is made of vibranium?" An alarm sounded on the panel in front of Tony, and the armor on his neck showed signs of damage. But Tony smiled. "I haven't forgotten. Although you have a body made of vibranium, what's so strange about that?" "Vision." Ultron was stunned and turned around quickly and saw a girl with soft dark blue hair staring at Ultron. Although she looked like a human, Ultron still sensed the power of the Mind Stone on Vision's forehead. He sighed and said, "I didn't expect you." He didn't have time to finish a complete sentence. Vision put his hands on Ultron's forehead. Tony also took action at this time and immediately locked Ultron's 2 hands that were grabbing his throat. The arrival of the Mind Stone poured into Ultron's mind, imprisoning and blocking it. In Ultron's cold mind, there were many more orange-yellow lights. This made Ultron scream in pain. He angrily hit Vision's forehead with his head. Vision screamed in pain and covered his head. "It hurts." Tony shouted, Please, you are also a vibranium body. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Ultron's head turned around. This action is impossible for normal people to do. It is full of mechanical operation style. Ultron kicked Tony away. He flew high in the air, looking at Vision, who was covering her head with tears in her eyes. Seeing her expression like a little girl, I felt a burst of anger in my heart, a special emotion from the machine. Barely call it anger. You cut off my networking mechanism. You trapped me in this body. Ultron's voice was very cold, but it doesn't matter. The body made of vibranium can still be used for a while. You destroyed me, and I will destroy the world. Vision flew up with a red forehead and looked at Ultron. When she was Friday, she had a confrontation with Ultron and was almost swallowed by Ultron. Although the Mind Stone gave Vision emotions, the part of Vision as Friday still existed. That is, Ultron, who was out of control of the organization. I must destroy you. Ultron opened his arms, and a metal device stretched out from the center of the church. Tony shouted, "What is this?" "You'll know when the time comes." A sword flew from afar and pierced Ultron's eyes. But after all, it was a vibranium body, which was particularly hard. Even a sword as strong as the Exorcist's sword could hardly leave a scar. Ultron hurriedly flew away and shouted, "Link." Tony looked over and saw Link rushing over on a motorcycle, and behind him was a group of Ultron robots that were either running or flying. Link was riding on a motorcycle at full speed, but his hands were not on the handlebars of the motorcycle running at full speed. Instead, he turned his flexible body sideways and shot arrows with his backhand. A group of enemies exploded at random. Link just flew the kite like this, shooting all the explosive arrows he got from Hawkeye in one breath. Only a few scales and armor were left. These remnants were quickly shot to death by 2 or 3 ice arrows from Link. Link stood up, stepped on the motorcycle, jumped up suddenly, spread his wings in the air, and flew quickly towards Ultron in the air. With a move of his hand, the Master Sword immediately flew back to Link's hand. In the air, Link exerted force on his waist, and the Master Sword was thrown out again by him, stabbing Ultron. Bang! Ultron punched him away. Midona said, "What a hard body. Can't beat it?" Link rushed over, holding the dragon scale sword in his hand, and swung it down. The blade and Ultron's hard arm collided. Link and the dragon scale sword in his hand were shaking. Feeling the force that was forcibly fed back from his body, Link's knuckles had traces of bleeding. Yaya couldn't help but lick it around his mouth with his tongue, but soon noticed Midona's cold eyes, so he quickly retracted his tongue. When Vision saw Link coming, he immediately became a little scared. She shrank behind Tony. Something amazing happened. Affected by Ultron's device, this area, covering 1/3 of Sokovia, floated up. The earth was torn apart. A huge semicircular bowl-shaped rock floated in the air, and it was still rising slowly. Link and Ultron fought fiercely. Ultron was defeated by Thor, Tony, and Vision. Now Link's ability has not recovered, and he is far weaker than Ultron in terms of hard power. But although Ultron's body is hard, he can seriously injure Link with one punch. But he can't attack Link. This blunt boy is very flexible. Even if Ultron constantly adjusts his attack method and rhythm according to Link, it is difficult to attack him. The two can't hurt each other, so they are in a stalemate and fight fiercely. Vision said to Tony, "Ultron is going to lift this area up, and then smash it down like a meteorite, to destroy all the creatures on the surface." Tony didn't know what expression to make after hearing this, so he was ready to push the blame on Vision. "So, you might as well tell Ultron the nuclear bomb code." At this moment, Captain America, Natasha, Hawkeye and others were attacking the Ultron robots on the street, fighting each other. Natasha didn't know how many Ultron robots she had killed with the small two-handed weapon customized by Tony. Anyway, her hands never stopped after she got off the fighter plane. Sokovia was already very high above the ground. Roger sighed that the air was a little thin. Natasha panted and said, Maybe something happened to you?" A familiar voice came from her headset. "I saw a sky carrier floating up in the sky, keeping level with Rogers and others." Tony was about to fly to the bottom of the rising surface of Sokovia to check the situation. Seeing the sky carrier, there was finally a little smile on his face. SHIELD finally did something meaningful. Thank you Chenchan TT 500 starting coins for the reward. Chapter 330 Avengers Assemble. Does that mean SHIELD has never done anything good before? Nick's cold voice came. Tony was not to be outdone. Then I ask you, why did the Hulk blood cyborg developed by Ivan appear in Strucker's place? Nick said, this, you can only ask Hydra. He turned around and looked at the busy people, including Hill, Eric, and many familiar faces. Only Carlson was not there. He was busy organizing SHIELD in secret. The current SHIELD is a real SHIELD. There are no traitors, and most of them are members who have survived the chaos caused by Hydra after years of training. Although the strength has been greatly reduced, it is undoubtedly a better SHIELD in Nick's heart. Nick's voice came into Roger's headset. Captain, quickly transfer the civilians to the plane. Hill suddenly said, Director, enemies are flying. A group of Ultron robots rushed over. Nick rubbed his brows. Okay, it's time for you to go out. A dark blue armored warrior flew out from the sky carrier, and the positioning fire launcher on his shoulder immediately locked onto several Ultron robots, opened fire, and wandered away. The Ultron robots that came to block were shot down by Feng. It was Iron Patriot Roddy. Roddy saw a large group of robots flying over and immediately flew away. Just as he aimed his cannon at the remaining Ultron robots, a girl with dark blue hair, wearing a silly cloak, rushed forward, and a golden laser appeared from her head, like Link's sword energy, instantly eliminating the large group of Ultron robots. She was very fast, and she appeared in a cluster, eliminated the enemies, and flew away again. Roddy looked strange. Fly. Link at least has wings. Thor at least has a hammer. That girl. Rogers and Natasha quickly organized the crowd and headed for the escape airship. But a large number of Ultron robots, like wolves smelling blood, quickly approached this side. Bang! Rogers threw out his shield and knocked down an Ultron robot that was trying to attack him. In the sky, Rhodey was fighting in the air, and two broken mechanical bodies fell from time to time. Natasha led a group of refugees into the cabin. Her delicate face was already covered with dust, but there was no time for her to clean it up now. In the distance, another group of Ultron robots flew over. Natasha rubbed her shoulders. The reinforcement seemed to be a little insufficient. Ahaha. Natasha was stunned and saw a small golden sphere flying out of the sky. That was Iron Man. Haha. While Tony was constantly updating his Iron Man, he did not forget Pepper and Zelda. Let's not talk about Zelda. The little girl has her own ideas, and the bird is modified according to her temperament. As for Pepper, Tony completely copied his mature technology and applied it to it. In other words, the small Iron Man that Pepper is wearing now. The combat power is stronger than the outdated Iron Patriot. This, positioning. Pepper fiddled with the interface, and suddenly the outer armor popped open, and many firing holes appeared. Boom boom boom. Pepper was speechless as he saw flames burst out from all over his body, and then dense barrages bombarded the Ultron robot, ending the battle in an instant. Broken mechanical corpses fell one by one in the sky. Pepper's beady eyes gradually lit up. Super awesome. At this time, Princess Washang stepped on the flying bird, came to the sky above the land, and jumped down. Long, big and shining sword beams gushed out. Even Link, who was fighting with Ultron from a distance, could vaguely see Princess Washang's moves. Link's current strength is very weak, and only Princess Washang can release such a brilliant and powerful sword beam. The two stepped lightly on the ground, and a large number of mechanical corpses fell around, like hail. A casual outfit of jeans and baseball jacket, under the flow of light. It turned into the battle dress that Washang Princess wore when she appeared. She shook the blade, and everyone heard the sword chanting from the royal rapier. This made Link look back unconsciously. He still had a resistance to Zelda and others going to the battlefield. Ultron took the opportunity to attack, but Link seemed relaxed, but he was actually always on guard against him and easily dodged. Ultron looked at Link, who was a little tired. Are you waiting for your teammates? But it's too late. Before your companions arrive, you will be killed by me. Midona snorted disdainfully. You will be slapped in the face soon. Ultron was stunned and felt something fluctuating in the sky, but Link didn't intend to give Ultron time to react. He immediately shook his shoulders and stabbed more than 10 swords in an instant, forming a dense offensive. Ultron's attention was distracted by Link. Bang! A huge thunder struck down. It directly hit Ultron 30 meters away. The lightning dissipated, and a hammer appeared on Ultron's chest. Then Mjolnir seemed to come alive, shook twice, and flew back to Thor's hand. Link gasped after landing. Ultron was really hard to deal with. Moreover, as a virtual intelligent creature that Tony could not help, it had a strong iteration function. He was studying Link's attack methods and flaws. Even if Link had thousands of attack and defense methods, he would be cracked by Ultron sooner or later. Fighting with Ultron was like fighting with a replica that knew him better than himself. It was a great test for Link. So during the battle, Link did not use the shield counter once. Thor took back the hammer. He had just hit with all his strength, and although he had knocked Ultron away, looking at the place where he was hit, there was no scratch at all. The body made of vibranium is terrible. Thor looked at the tired Link. This guy is really hard to deal with. At this moment, Rogers, Natasha, Hawkeye, and Hulk had already rushed over. Princess Washang hurried to Link's side. Tony and Vision flew over from a distance. Vision said, if Ultron touches the starter in the center of the church, this piece of Sokovia will fall. Everyone will die. Thor laughed. I can fly, so I won't die. He looked around and said, you can't either. Then he shouted to Ultron, our people have gathered, what else can you do? Ultron sneered and waved his hand. A large number of Ultron robots came over like ants and surrounded the church. Rogers looked at Thor and shook his head. Why do you have to talk too much? Tony closed his visor. Guard the starter. Seeing that Link was very tired, Princess Washang smiled and said, next is a group battle, which is what I'm good at. Link forced a smile and took a deep breath. He was a little unhappy. After fighting with Ultron for such a long time, there was no winner. This made Link a little unacceptable. Although he only had 3 hearts now, only the most basic energy tank, and his strength was very weak. But he still couldn't accept that he couldn't beat a mere Ultron. Chapter 331, Vibranium vs Link's Fang. 4th update. A large number of Ultron robots surrounded and attacked. Princess Washang swung her sword, and the sword energy was so strong that a large number of enemies fell to the ground. Vision never took his eyes off Ultron, and his cape fluttered as he flew straight towards Ultron. Hulk roared, probably because he was hungry, and grabbed the first Ultron robot that rushed towards him, stuffed it directly into his mouth, and chewed it hard. Then he spit it out like spitting out melon seeds, and the steel fragments shot out like bullets and pierced through the body of the Ultron robot that rushed towards him. Bang! Now the height is almost close to the cloud layer. Thor opened his hand, and the hammer absorbed the power from the dark clouds and swung it out suddenly. Lightning flashed, and the dazzling light fell, and another group of Ultron robots were charred and destroyed. Tony even flew into the sky and launched a fierce artillery attack. The ordinary duo, Hawkeye and Natasha, looked at each other. Fighting with these people is really... Rogers grabbed an Ultron robot that weighed as much as 4 adults and threw it out suddenly, knocking over a group of people. He also agreed with the words of the ordinary duo. That's right. Compared to these superpowered warriors, the history of us ordinary people is insignificant, and we must also find our own value. We are not worse than them. Hawkeye, Natasha. He finished a motivational speech that moved himself a little. Unexpectedly, Hawkeye and Natasha's reactions were very cold. Shoot the enemy to death with an arrow at close range, and quickly draw the bow again. Hawkeye looked at Rogers and said with a smile, it's strange for a super soldier to say this. Natasha quickly killed 2 Ultron robots with a short stick, raised her head, looked at Rogers and said, you are not an ordinary person. Rogers punched the robot that tried to sneak attack him into a C shape. He said helplessly, 70 years ago, I was the only superhero. But now, compared with Hulk and Link, what's the difference between me and you? Everyone fought fiercely, and the scene was extremely chaotic. Link silently crouched down and wandered among the enemies, showing his assassin side, like a ghost, and wherever he passed, the Ultron robots that were hit by a short blow fell to the ground one after another. Tony and his companions fought more and more vigorously. With everyone working together, this group of mechanical legions that looked particularly scary was not difficult to defeat. But Vision, who was fighting Ultron one-on-one, did not feel good. Ultron was suppressing Thor in the original time and space. It was only defeated by the joint attack of Thor, Vision and Tony. And he was only defeated, not dead. Vision was just born. Ultron was full of metal, and she was a flesh body rich in vibranium element. It was simply difficult to resist. The situation soon became passive. Vision. Tony saw that the situation was not good, and hurriedly released the laser, and aimed it at Ultron. But Ultron punched hard, and Vision was knocked towards Iron Man. Tony hurriedly focused the light, but it was too late, and Vision was injured in the abdomen by the light. As a result, Ultron rushed over quickly, punched Iron Man's visor away, and Tony crashed into the ruins. And Ultron's iron hand pinched Vision's neck. Princess Washang drew her sword, and charged forward quickly. The light in her hand condensed, and suddenly turned into a bow of light, aiming at Ultron. Bus, bus, bus. A loud chanting sound of believers rang out around. It seemed that there was a god in the bow of light that Princess Washang's energy turned into. Cluster. An arrow was shot out, and a long light trailed out from the tail of the arrow of light, piercing Ultron's head. Ridiculous power. Ultron smashed the arrow of light with a punch. At the same time, the force of the other hand holding Vision's neck became more and more intense. Vision made a painful sound in his throat. Ultron smiled and said, "My beloved body has been implanted with such a cowardly soul by you. Well, although I don't know why the body has become a woman, but it is still intact." His face with steel lines was cold. "I will expel her soul from this body that does not belong to her. Don't even think about it." Thor shouted, raising his hammer high and attacking. Ultron was even faster and blocked Vision in front of him. "Haha, you can't afford to waste time with me. Sokovia is about to fall, and the end of mankind is about to come." This sentence made everyone feel a chill on their backs. Really? But he didn't have time to be arrogant for too long. The people who punished him came. Link quietly touched behind him. Swift and silent. Suddenly jumped up and stepped on Ultron's shoulder in an instant. Crouching slightly, he fiercely slashed at Ultron's arm holding Vision. Ting. The blade vibrated. Link's full strength sword, which had been accumulated for a long time, still couldn't cut off Ultron's hand. Ultron said coldly, "You asked for this yourself. You know I hate you." He grabbed Link's clothes and pulled it off. He pressed Link's legs with his knees. No matter how Link stabbed with the Master Sword, he couldn't hurt Ultron at all. Ultron knocked Link's Master Sword away. Link. Princess Washang looked nervous, and she was ready to fight Ultron with her sword. Everyone didn't move much. "Don't move." Ultron whispered, "If you move again, I will crush the boy's head." The eyes of the Washang princess turned red slightly, and the blade pointed at Ultron. "You." Ultron's iron hand pressed Link's face, without any warmth. When Ultron pulled Link down, Midona hurriedly took Fang away, quickly transformed into a human form, picked up the Master Sword, and looked at Ultron with a difficult face. "I advise you not to do stupid things. The Master Sword is exclusive to Link, and difficult for others to use, just like Mjolnir." Ultron imitated the unique mocking smile of humans. "Fear. Your faces are full of fear. Humans are so fragile, weak." His slow voice turned into a scream. The people who were at a loss were suddenly startled. Ultron quickly bounced his hand and let go of Link, as if he was scalded by a hot pot. There was a half-moon shaped gap in Ultron's tiger's mouth. Link chewed something in his mouth with anger, spit it out, and hurriedly rolled away. Ultron said angrily, "How is it possible? My hand." Everyone was shocked. You know, Ultron's body is made of vibranium, although it is not very pure, but it is also vibranium. Link, did he bite off a piece of Ultron just now? Tony coughed twice, looked at Captain America's shield, and said sincerely, try not to lend the shield to Link. What if he wants to use the shield to grind his teeth?" Natasha wiped the cold sweat. "So, what material are Link's teeth made of?" Ultron's eyes also changed when he looked at Link. His vibranium body was hurt for the first time. Midona said to Yaya blankly, "So, you like to bite things randomly, did you learn it from Link?" Yaya shook her head blankly. Vision was also terrified in Ultron's hands. "My god. No, Boss Stark. This Link can really bite vibranium to pieces." Let go of Vision. Link suddenly transformed into a handsome wolf, revealing his white wolf teeth, and biting at Ultron. Ultron finally panicked. Don't come over." Thanks to Zyanatang 246 for the support of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 332, Strength Restored. Ultron is beheaded. Although Ultron didn't particularly like this body, after all, he still valued the living body of Vision. Even when Vision blocked the networking mechanism in Ultron's body, he was not very upset. Because this body made of vibranium is strong enough, except for the one that Vision has, there is no better body in the world than the one he has now. Ultron thought that this indestructible body could survive even after the explosion of the Earth. Unexpectedly, it was actually blocked by Link's teeth. Ugh. Link showed his white wolf teeth and pounced on Ultron. In fact, human form is also fine, but it is somewhat embarrassing for Link to attack with teeth. So he decided to transform into a shadow wolf. Ultron was frightened by the white arc in Link's eyes and turned to run. Link followed closely behind, but his speed was not as fast as Ultron. But he has a companion. Seeing that Ultron wanted to escape, Madonna immediately used the power of the Reality Stone to set up a space barrier on Ultron's route. In a hurry, Madonna messed up the space. Ultron saw that his retreat was blocked, so he ran to the left. But there was a thunderous roar, and Thor's cloak brought out brilliant electric sparks, blocking his way. Ultron turned and ran back, while Roger stood there with a shield in hand. Looking up at the sky again, it was Iron Man looking down. Iron Man said word by word, "Let Vision go, and I will tear you into pieces." Ultron was surrounded by everyone. His minions wanted to support him, but the remaining Ultron robots were blocked by the Washan Princess, Natasha, and Hawkeye. Link rushed over like a fly. Ultron let go of Vision and punched Link hard. "I hope you don't get broken by my fist before you bite me next time." "There will be no chance," Link said silently in his heart. The skill that he had prepared for a long time burst out immediately. Time stop. The time stop skill locked Ultron, and several golden chains bound him, and his body was golden. Ultron kept sprinting and punching, and even when he was stagnant, he was full of deterrence. Link jumped on top of Ultron's head and immediately released the time stop. Snap, the golden chains exploded, and Ultron continued to sprint forward, and the wolf Link in front of him had disappeared. What is the favorite part of the wolf's fang? Link aimed at Ultron's neck and bit it hard. AHH. A lot of lightning came out of Ultron's neck. He wanted to reach out and tear Link to pieces. Although Link has very strange and strong teeth, it is difficult for him to resist Ultron's punch. But the teammates around Link are not just watching the show and shouting 666. Madonna waved her hand, and missed him flashed out, circled twice, and tied Ultron's arm, and shouted, "The one with the big strength, help me pull it." Rogers rushed over and grabbed Mistin. Ultron's other fist was entangled by the rapidly rushing Iron Man. With a hammer, Thor swung Mjolnir and hit Ultron's knee, forcing him to kneel on one knee. Everyone heard a tooth-grinding sound of metal friction and Ultron's gradually distorted sharp electronics sound. Rip. Something tore apart. Link Wolf's mouth was full of blood, and the wolf's head tilted up, and a hard head fell to the ground. The light in the eyes flickered, then dimmed and no longer shone. Rogers let go of Mistidin, and looked at Link Wolf, standing on the shoulder of the headless metal corpse, licking the blood at the corner of his mouth with his tongue. Vibranium is not something that is so easy to bite. When entangled with Ultron, Link's lips and mouth corners were injured a lot. He didn't dare to change back to his original appearance now, otherwise the bloody and injured appearance would make the Zeldas who were worried about him feel uneasy again. Tony stepped forward and touched Link's furry head, panting a little. "Well done." Mitha floated out leisurely, and seeing Link in the form of a wolf, she hugged him intimately, and then poured the power of protection in her body into Link's body. The tragic injury at the corner of his mouth was quickly repaired. Link then transformed into a human again. Mitha held Link's head, gently touched Link's forehead, smiled sweetly, and disappeared. Link saw Vision, who was still holding his throat and gasping for breath, and reached out his hand. Vision timidly, "Thank you, thank you." She was not so hostile to Link, but her fear deepened. Link bit off Ultron's head. "Vibranium, vibranium. That's vibranium." When Vision touched Link's hand, he felt that every cell in his body was trembling. This is the sense of oppression from the level of the food chain. Madonna cheered and turned back into a little girl. She and Yaya rushed into Link's arms, touched Link's chin with her fingers, and smiled. "What a powerful tooth. Have your teeth also been blessed by the goddess? Or did the goddess give you her dentures? I don't wear dentures. The smile on Link's face rose. Everyone came forward to cheer for Link, but saw that Link was sluggish. The double wing pattern on Link's left wrist suddenly released a burst of colorful light, wrapping Link's whole body. Gradually, the light-like things covered Link's body into an egg shape. Ye saw that Link disappeared, and panickedly bit the light egg with her teeth. But her teeth were not the same type as Link's, so she immediately opened her mouth with a sour feeling, and looked up at Midona blankly. The Washang princess cut down a large number of Ultron robots with 2 or 3 sword energies. As for the rest, they were scared, because Ultron was decapitated, and hurriedly ran away. Hawkeye said in a low voice, "What? Don't you want to continue playing with us? Don't be too picky." The arrow shot out quickly. Faster than Hawkeye's arrow was a green life form. Hulk shouted, jumped suddenly, and smashed the fleeing enemy with 2 huge fists. Princess Washang ran over, and saw that everyone was confused. Then Thor explained calmly, "Don't worry, this is Goddess Hylia doing that, for Link." In fact, Thor didn't understand it very well. He could only feel the vague breath of Goddess Hylia. Princess Washang closed her eyes, and sensed Link and the breath that enveloped Link. Soon, she opened her eyes, and said in surprise, "Link's strength has recovered, and has been greatly enhanced." Thor scratched his head and frowned. Enhanced again? What on earth is Link made of? His strength is rising up, which is unreasonable. But there is a strong breath of Goddess Hylia around him. Thor has his own explanation in his heart. Oh, it must be Link's devotion to Goddess Hylia. The goddess gave him such terrible power. I will pray more in the future. Suddenly he shook his head again. No, this is too utilitarian, and it may cause the goddess to hate. Rogers looked at Thor, who was tangled, and talking to himself inexplicably. He whispered to Tony, "What's wrong with him? Is he afraid that Link will retaliate against him?" Thanks to Senyanluo for the 100 starting coins reward support. Chapter 333 Pure Light. Princess Washang guarded Link. Now the Earth's crust was still rising, and it was far from time for the Avengers to rest. So everyone dispersed, evacuated personnel, killed the participating Ultron robots, and sought a way to safely land Sokovia. Link, on the other hand, quietly fell into a wonderful feeling. His body seemed to have no weight, as if floating in the salt lake, light and fluttering. He could clearly feel that the power in his body that was used to awaken the goddess Hylia and was over dry was filling his entire body like digging out a new spring. The source of this pure energy was unknown. It seemed to come from the will of the goddess on his wrist, but it was naturally generated by the body. Link felt it a little and was a little shocked, because the new light-like energy came from the surrounding void. It was pure energy directly supplied to Link from the origin of the world. No wonder the goddess Hylia said that, if the goddess will was fully activated, the whole world would stand on Link's side. Link took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and concentrated on absorbing energy to strengthen himself. The body seemed to be projected by strong light, so that it was almost transparent, and the blood vessels and organs in the body were clearly visible. In just a few seconds, the power restored Link to his peak state. Or, it was far stronger than Link's peak state. In fact, the awakened power was too strong, so Link's body could not bear it. He gradually felt pain, as if his body was about to be hurt by the excess energy. But this did not happen. This emerging energy was perfectly compatible with Link's body, and was extremely gentle. Even in the case of a surge, it did not hurt Link's body. Suddenly, Link's chest also bloomed with brilliant golden light, and a large triangle composed of 3 small triangles emerged. The holy triangle was absorbing the overly strong power, and the light-like energy that Link could not bear seemed to have found a gap and all poured into the holy triangle. A ray of light flew into the holy triangle, and the faint light of the holy triangle's power itself became more and more intense. Finally, dang dang dang. Several crisp sounds came in succession, like gems colliding with each other. Countless points of light gathered in the holy triangle. They once again condensed into 5 certificates of bravery. At the same time, the exorcist sword, which was kept by Washang at all times, suddenly seemed to have grown wings, and quickly broke free from the surprised Washang princess's hand, and then pierced into the light egg, as if to take Link's life. The Master Sword rushed into the light egg and came inside. The sword body was covered with a soft golden light, like some kind of fresh milk. The tip of the sword gently touched the center of the holy triangle. With a buzzing sound, the Master Sword and the holy triangle resonated. Inside the Master Sword, the stars increased rapidly and soon reached a maximum of 12, exceeding the number of planets in the solar system. Link opened his eyes. The egg-shaped light outside made a click and collapsed into the inside. All turned into light and was absorbed by Link and the power of the holy triangle in his body. Princess Washang opened her mouth slightly and saw the last ray of light disappear in Link's clear blue eyes. She couldn't help but walk forward and gently stroked Link's face. Link was slightly surprised. Did the goddess not just restore his power, but also change Link's appearance? Then he heard the Washang princess say seriously, "Your skin seems to be glowing." When it comes to glowing, Link feels the energy filling his body, which makes him excited and needs to release the excessive energy. The Washang princess's slender fingers gently brushed Link's cheek and immediately found that Link's body was purer than before and even tended to develop into a pure elemental body. Although Link and Zelda look no different from ordinary people except for their ears, they also have the same organs and blood. But compared to the Earthlings, Link and Zelda's bodies are purer, with a system of pure energy and flesh and blood coexisting in their bodies. Tony deduced that this was the reason why Zelda and Link could not grow up in 100 years. And now, this tendency in Link is even more obvious. Princess Washang joked, "I feel like you're about to turn into crystal." At this time, Midona and Yaya also climbed onto Link's shoulders with ease, looking at Link and Princess Washang with a smile. Midona took a deep breath. Not bad, not bad. Link's body is full of the smell of light. It really makes me feel a little uncomfortable. She is a princess from the Kingdom of Shadows, and her physical strength is completely opposite to Link's. So now Link's body is too strong, making Midona feel like being exposed to the sun. Yaya pressed against Link's neck and looked at Midona in confusion. Not sure why she didn't like it, Yaya felt that Link's increasingly pure energy was very comfortable, making people want to sleep. Yaya yawned, gently stroked Yaya's little head. Link was ready to find a way to land this land safely. He knew the battle was not over. He held Princess Washang's waist and signaled that he was about to take off. Princess Washang was a little afraid of heights, so she hugged Link carefully, and her posture of holding Link was dignified and measured. The power of Libba gathered behind him. Two wings made of light soared into the sky. As soon as he used his new power, Link immediately felt abnormal. His eyebrows frowned again. The energy attribute of his body had been reversed before, and he became a weird blue-skinned Link, just like a member of Midona's clan. When it was forcibly transformed, this strange shadow energy had been living in his body, and Link could not get rid of it, no matter what he did. And in the energy recovery process blessed by the will of the goddess this time, the body and the power in the body were further purified. When taking off, the new powerful power of the body began to flow. When the entire energy system in the body started to operate, Link still felt a slight disharmony in his abdomen. The shadow energy was still not cleared, but because of the surging light energy around it, it seemed deeper and darker, like a small black hole. Link felt very strange, but didn't think much about it. Anyway, now the goddess Hylia lives in the crystal statue. Link can just find a chance to ask the goddess. And the shadow energy has never brought any harm to Link. On the contrary, it has enhanced Link's strength to a certain extent. At that time, the rich black sword light was sharper than the white sword light like boiled water. So he put this abnormality behind him and flapped his wings to fly to the sky carrier. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 334 Nick, Weak and Wronged. The Avengers were beating up the fleeing Ultron robots. It was unknown how Ultron had created such a large army of robots in such a short time. Tony felt the energy reserves of his arc reactor was decreasing, which was used to supply Tony's large-scale artillery bombardment. Nick remotely directed S.H.I.E.L.D. to load refugees. Hill suddenly saw an Ultron robot rushing over from a distance, and it was about to hit the glass of the command room with its head. Enemy. Hill pushed Nick away. A crazy Ultron broke through the glass, and the flowers flew everywhere. It hit the ground with a bang, and then like a sick beast, it began to attack everyone crazily. Most of the people in the command cabin were technical personnel, so they were lacking in actual combat. Just when the people around were still in a panic, Zelda shouted, "Hey!" and threw a stool over. The Ultron robot was knocked back and screamed at Zelda in an electronic voice. Nick's face turned pale on the spot. Hill had just pulled out his pistol when he saw the Ultron robot rushing towards Zelda. He didn't dare to shoot anymore. Nick shouted, "Leave Zelda. Leave this to us." Nick had been through a lot in his life, and even when he learned that Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., he was able to remain calm. This time he was really panicked. "Zelda, don't mess around. You are in the Sky Carrier, on our S.H.I.E.L.D's territory. What if something happens to you? How should we explain to Link? Link might really skin S.H.I.E.L.D. alive, okay? Anyway, S.H.I.E.L.D. has already retreated from the front to the back. As long as Zelda has something wrong, Nick believes that Link will make S.H.I.E.L.D. disappear from the back." The Ultron robot pounced fiercely. If it were any other little girl, she would probably be so scared that her hands and feet would become weak. But Zelda had experienced a lot of things, and when she saw Ultron pounce, her first reaction was, "This robot's bionic walking mode feels very stiff. There must be something wrong with the details." Tony's mass-produced machines always have this problem. Tony's attitude towards his own son Iron Man and these mass-produced machines is completely different. When Ultron pounced fiercely, the bracelet in Zelda's hand lit up and transformed into a cylindrical shape like a flashlight. Then a beam of light was released from the center, and a simple lightsaber was born. Don't think I'm easy to mess with. Zelda has seen Link's countless sword dances, battles, and killings. Under the influence of what she has seen and heard, although she has little actual combat experience, Link will be unhappy if she dares to fight. Zelda's own ability to find and grasp the enemy's weaknesses, including reading the rhythm of the battle, is very strong. Seeing the iron hand of the Ultron robot grabbing, there are many flaws in the attack. Zelda used the fastest speed to choose the easiest and most efficient attack point and stabbed it at once. The lightsaber lightly bypassed Ultron's arm and pierced into the mechanical eye. The Ultron robot was stunned and stiff. Zelda smiled at everyone. "I succeeded." Before she smiled for long, she suddenly cried out in pain and let go of the lightsaber. Blowing on his 10 fingers, he muttered, "The heat dissipation capacity of the hilt is very poor. I got burned. Is there something wrong with my heat insulation?" Nick sighed and walked over with his shoulders drooping helplessly, staring at Zelda with one eye. "Leave this matter to us. Just run. What if something happens to you, Nick?" Suddenly, he heard a roar and saw Link flying in through the broken window created by the Ultron robot. He saw Nick looking for trouble with Zelda at first sight and immediately misunderstood Nick. His eyebrows immediately stood up. Link put down the Washan princess and looked at Nick with a bad face. Midona asked Nick on behalf of Link, "What are you going to do to Zelda?" Zelda smiled apologetically. Nick smiled awkwardly and spread his hands. "I just want her to be careful." Link hurried to Zelda's side and Midona asked, "Did this gangster uncle bully you?" Zelda shook her head. Nick stood with his hands on his hips, expressing his grievance. "There may be people in this world who dare to bully Zelda, but I'm definitely not one of them. And you, little girl, tell me what the gangster uncle is?" Link learned the whole story from Zelda and immediately apologized to Nick. Nick shook his head. "Compared to this, how do you plan to land this piece of Sokovia safely?" In the original time and space, Tony's approach was to detonate the land suspended in the air. But the consequence of this disaster is that the people of a large area will suffer the most tragic airstrike in the world. This is also one of the controversial issues of the Avengers during the Civil War. It is also a new point of guilt for Tony, because a mother who lost her child still advocated that the Avengers sign the Sokovia Agreement. At this point, the Civil War broke out, and the Avengers split. Midona said proudly, "Don't worry, there is nothing in this world that Link can't do." Link raised his eyebrows. "He hasn't thought of a way yet, okay?" Nick smiled. "Yes, but why do you sound so much like Carlson?" Midona covered her mouth in surprise. What? I boasted about Link so hypocritically, and there is someone who does the same as me. Who is he? What is his intention in approaching my Link? What is his purpose in praising Link? Midona asked Nick seriously. Nick spread his hands. He is just a simple fan. He is also the leader of Link's fan group. Nick has long been dissatisfied with Coulson using the power of S.H.I.E.L.D. to create momentum for Link and Captain America on the internet. Coulson, you are the future leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you have to do such a shameful thing? Even at work, you don't forget to hold your phone and do private work. After Link emphasized to Zelda to protect herself, he hurried away. Just as he was about to fly, he looked around, and Midona said for Link, "Where is the Zelda with bangs?" Zelda looked a little strange. "She's fine. Link, be careful on the road, bye." Then she pushed Link away. Zelda was not good at lying, and Link immediately knew that something seemed to have happened to the Sky Princess. But the situation was urgent, and he didn't have time to ask more questions, so he left immediately. Of course, he wasn't too worried. After all, Sky Princess and Zelda's temperaments would never deliberately hide serious things from Link. Maybe Sky Princess had an allergy on her face and didn't dare to see Link. After Link flew away, Sky Princess was a little worried. "I feel like Link seems to have noticed the current situation of Zelda." Zelda smiled bitterly. She doesn't want Link to worry. "I'm afraid Link will be scared the next time he sees her." Chapter 335. Ancient One appears. Link quickly found Tony. Tony saw Link was in high spirits and said, "I knew that Link, who smashed the alien warship head on, is back again. It seems that you have become stronger again." Jarvis told me. Jarvis's calm voice came from Iron Man. "Yes, Link, the energy index in your body has changed again." Hearing Jarvis' voice reminded Link of the female vision, and he couldn't help but feel a little headache. In order to avoid sacrificing Jarvis, a female vision was created. "I don't know whether it is good or bad," Jarvis said. "Now Rogers, Natasha, Barton and others have left. Ultron has been destroyed by Vision." Tony nodded. "We only have one last problem left, and of course it is the most difficult one." He looked at the ruins under his feet. "Don't let this thing hit the citizens' heads." At this time, Vision and Thor flew over together. For some reason, Vision admired Thor very much, and even made an exaggerated cape in imitation of Thor. Thor looked at Link, and took a deep breath. "A stronger Link?" Link smiled and nodded. Tony smiled, "And it's Link who is even less talkative. By the way, what's your look?" Thor laughed. "I figured out a new way to fly. I can float in the air. It's from Peppa's idea." Now Thor, holding Thor's hammer high, grabbed the lanyard at the tail, swung it like a bamboo dragonfly, and stopped in the air like a helicopter. Tony was sweating. "Peppa? Why don't you ask Peppa for superb clothing matching?" Haha. At this time, another flying creature ran over, shouting, "Brave sir." He suddenly bumped into Link's arms, blinked his little eyes, and also greeted Midona and yeah. "How are you guys?" Midona exclaimed. "Peppa, you've gained weight again." Peppa touched his belly aggrievedly. Yaya nodded boredly. At this time, Thor suggested, "Link, think about it. Let's merge our two minds and blow up this piece of land." Tony shook his head. "No need to be so troublesome. I will go inside to destroy the device that absorbs rocks, and this large piece of land will explode by itself. But a large number of rocks will hurt many people. It's not perfect." Due to Link's appearance, Ultron was killed in advance, so Tony had time to think about the consequences of blowing up Sokovia. In the original time and space, the Avengers could only run around to avoid the destruction of the world, and Sokovia could only be tactically abandoned. Peppa asked in a silly way, "Are you afraid of hitting someone?" "I'm afraid too. I heard that my companion was hit on the head with a big rock by the brave hero before." Tony widened his eyes. "Link, I didn't expect that you are also a naughty kid." Link smiled bitterly, and Midona explained for Link, "That was the first time Link saw a creature like Yahaha. You have to understand, in a continent full of evil monsters." Link picked up a stone casually, and suddenly a green creature emerged from it, shouting Yahaha at your nose. "How would you react?" Vision thought for a while and said, "I will shoot him with a laser before he says the second ha." Peppa looked at Vision in horror, hiding in Link's arms. He was somewhat confident and said tenderly, "You don't understand the fun of being found while playing hide and seek." At this time, Roger's helpless voice came from the headset. "Please, can you think of something serious?" Yes, the atmosphere suddenly became serious again. When Peppa heard Roger's voice, he shouted happily, "Steven, I got it." Tony asked, "What good idea did you come up with? Let Link eat all the fallen rubble?" Midona thought about Tony's joke. Eat it? Indeed, Link can use the power of the Reality Stone to create a new world and put this floating land in it. Thor's eyes lit up. Yes, just like the last time Link absorbed the body of the headless ancient god. Link's expression did not react. Midona continued to add, "But the last time Link operated it, it was in outer space. There was nothing around. He dared to take the risk of using the Reality Stone. It won't work here. This is the Earth. You know, the power of the Reality Stone is very strange. If it is not controlled properly, it will suck the entire Earth into the dark world. Link almost lost last time. Or it has already failed. Link sucked me in." The atmosphere became heavy again. But at this time, "Maybe you need my help." A calm voice came. Tony looked into the distance and thought. Without turning his head, he said, "I'll tell you, if you don't speak for a long time, your voice will change. Link, you need to be more cheerful." Vision said hurriedly, "It's not Link, but someone else." Tony turned his head. "Is there anyone else? How come I didn't know there were so many people on Earth who could fly?" "You." A bald woman, wearing a simple robe, came from the void. The woman's age could not be seen. Her face was pretty, her eyes were deep, and the corners of her mouth maintained a calm arc, just like the Buddha statues preserved on the mountainside in the mountains. Link recognized this woman immediately. The Supreme Sorcerer, Ancient One. Link also noticed that Ancient One's eyes were always looking at him. Thor had a surprised smile on his face. "Why? There are still mages on Earth?" Ancient One smiled faintly. "People's eyes always have invisible places. The Avengers protect the Earth in visible places. And the Magic Temple protects the Earth in invisible places." Link looked at Midona. Midona tilted her head and said, "Sister Mage, do you have a way to destroy this land?" Ancient One shook his head. "I can't." Tony also shook his head. "Please, since you are here, give us a little surprise, okay?" Ancient One continued, "But I can help Link eliminate this land." He opened his palm, and on his slender fingers, there was a metal ball, which emitted a light green light. Time, reality, mind. Reality and illusion. Ancient One looked at Vision. The Mind Stone, Time Stone, and Reality Stone appeared on Earth at the same time. "What will this bring?" Thor was horrified. The Time Stone is also on Earth." Ancient One smiled and said, "I don't want to interfere too much in reality. But I saw the consequences of Link forcibly using the Reality Stone on Earth. A destruction." Link was speechless. It seemed that Ancient One had predicted the future several times. He seemed to have caused some trouble, which was why he provoked the Great Ancient One. Could it be that Link himself swallowed the Earth with the Reality Stone in a certain future? Ancient One seemed to know something, and nodded to Link, which made Link feel a little cold. Chapter 336 3 Infinity Gems Collaboration. As the Ancient One was talking, a building in the city cluster of Sokovia broke open, and several things like jets pushed out from the inside. Tony's pupils shrank. "Stop chatting. If you have a way, just say it. If you want to chat, I can chat with you to your heart's content after the end. Everyone in the world knows that I talk a lot." The Ancient One nodded slightly, looking at Link and Vision. Vision timidly pulled away from Link. Seeing the Ancient One looking at her with a lake-like gaze, and then his thin lips opened, Link and Vision suddenly found that time stopped, and a substance similar to glass fragments appeared around them, wrapping them. Outside, the world turned into a blurred shadow. Link was very familiar with this. When he triggered the bullet time, it would also form such an effect. Time slowed down, or stopped. The world would suddenly become darker and blurrier, and the sounds produced around were stretched many times, making an unimaginable strange sound. Inside, time flowed as usual. Vision looked around, a little curious, but not terrified. His wisdom comes from the Mind Stone in his brain, and he feels the resonance from the Time Stone. Midona also took out the ether particles. This dark red energy particle was still twisting and tangling in front of Link like some kind of poison. Because the power of the ether particles was too strange, it was handed over to Madonna, who was more familiar with the power of illusion. This also made Link feel a little curious. After all, such a dangerous thing was kept well by Madonna. This proved that Link's choice was not wrong. It would be safer to hand it over to the Twilight Princess than to call it a collector. The Ancient One was still slow, because she was the only person in the world, and even the whole universe, who was qualified to slow down. The land that should have fallen was bound in time. The Ancient One could calmly instruct Vision and Link. Do as you originally thought. Use the Reality Stone to open a door to other dimensions. Absorb this land clean. You just need to do your best. Link nodded, but was soon annoyed by the next sentence of the Ancient One. Even if you try your best, it won't be enough. Then the Ancient One's empty eyes, as if blind, turned to Vision. As for you, the new life form, use the power of your Reality Stone to stabilize Link's mind and strengthen his control ability. Vision whispered, okay. The Ancient One extended his dark green Reality Stone, and a layer of green covered his eyes. As for me and the Time Stone, we will use it to stop the surrounding space from fluctuating and prevent the power of the Reality Stone from leaking out. When Link uses the Reality Stone to its fullest, he will become the most dangerous person in the universe. The Earth is like a fragile berry, which will break if you pinch it casually. You know, in a timeline I encountered. The Ancient One smiled slightly, but said something very scary. Link accidentally summoned a dark world that is larger than this universe, and directly broke the entire universe. Vision looked at Link in horror. This boy's really scary. Madonna patted Link's head angrily. Don't panic. Link shook his head. He was still calm. After all, there is more than one timeline. As a result, the slow words of the Ancient One continued to make Link feel a toothache. This is the strangest of your mistakes. In more cases, it is the strong suction that directly causes the moon to deviate from its orbit and hit the Earth. The moon hits the Earth. Why does this plot look so familiar? Link's mind suddenly shook. He finally remembered a little bit of the incomplete scenes and the environment created by the Scarlet Witch for him. The Ancient One asked softly, Link, what are you wondering about? Link shook his head and rarely spoke on his own initiative. I thought of a dark ending. The Ancient One smiled. Let's get started. We will talk about the unnecessary things later. Madonna whispered to Link, how old do you think this wizard sister is this year? It seems that she has a very old soul. But Madonna soon noticed that the Ancient One's eyes shifted to her and hurriedly put on an innocent and bright smile. Let's get started. Time returned to normal. Link and Madonna remained normal, but Vision felt a little uncomfortable and swayed in the air as if he was car sick. The time and the outside world returned to normal. Time suddenly flowed, and a large amount of information poured into Vision's overly sensitive brain, making her feel a little uncomfortable. Link was quick to reach out and hold Vision. He saw that many red rashes suddenly appeared on Vision's skin, spreading directly to his face. Are you afraid that I will have an allergy? Exclamation mark. You are exaggerating, right? After all, my body is made of vibranium. Is it really so fragile? Vision's skin touched Link, and whoosh, his whole body was alert and regained consciousness. It was like a drowsy suicide in a secret room with an explosive concentration of carbon monoxide, and was suddenly thrown into the ice and snow with clear air. Vision shivered and smiled at Link. Well, I'm awake. You can. Link raised his hand like a player suspected of a foul. Looking at the corner of Sokovia floating in the clouds, it began to stop rising. In the city, several huge barrels of thrusters sprayed strong high temperatures into the sky. Boom boom boom. Sokovia in the sky began to crash rapidly into Sokovia on the ground. Madonna hurriedly shouted, everyone, evacuate. It will be very dangerous here. Link rushed down. Now his strength has returned to its peak, and it can even be said that it is much higher than before. The speed has also increased significantly. In a blink of an eye, he arrived at the bottom of Sokovia. Looking at the huge shadow in the sky pressing down, Yaya hugged her head in fear and trembled. Madonna's face was also a little uncomfortable. Who can withstand it? Link suddenly remembered that the two little guys were not put down. Madonna patted Link's head again. Leave it to you. Yeah, and I will stay on your shoulders for a while. So Midona hugged Yeah, and the two little guys trembled together. Seeing this, Link laughed. With a wave of his hand, the other particles scattered, like floating catkins in the wind, and suddenly condensed into a spiral similar to DNA, and finally formed a huge vortex. The surrounding space twisted and tore, and a dark unknown world bloomed. Unlike the Space Stone, the Reality Stone mainly bridges the boundary between reality and illusion. It is not another dimension as Ancient One and his companions thought. It is a complete void. Tony and others hurried away and watched from afar. Zelda and Princess Washang were also waiting anxiously. The Sky Princess, with a gauze covering her face, was also in her room, looking at the scene outside the window. Everyone almost forgot to breathe. Not only because the air was thin at high altitudes. Suddenly, something abnormal happened in the falling Sokovia. Chapter 337 Three Forces. In the distance, Sokovia was falling rapidly. A large object would seem to fall slowly, but due to several thrusters that were impacting downward, Sokovia fell very violently. Tony's face turned pale, although he knew Link had done this before, and it was even more exaggerated. He forcibly sucked a headless corpse of an ancient god that was as big as the earth into the dark world, avoiding a collision with the ignorant existence. He saved the ordinary or despicable lives on the corpse planet, but this is on Earth. Sokovia is too close to the surface. Once the power of the Reality Stone loses control, the entire planet will be absorbed. From then on, the solar system will lose its only planet of life. And Tony and others may find a place of belonging because of Thor's existence, Asgard. But they will no longer have their own hometown, and more than 6 billion of their kind will be lonely in the darkness. Thor's face was also gloomy. Said to Tony and others, "Let's leave quickly. There's nothing to see here." Tony nodded. Yeah, I hope Link can have a chance to experience this feeling. This kind of anxious waiting with a beating heart. Thor and others returned to the spaceship, and Nick sat on a worn-out chair. This is the weapon that Zelda used to kill the Ultron robot. Seeing Tony and Thor enter the room uncomfortably, he looked up and asked, "So, apart from waiting, there is nothing we can do?" Tony shook his head. "Not really. I can do something with the speakers of your sky carrier to create a stronger noise, so that you can convey your cheers to Link's ears, which may inspire the boy, but the more likely reaction is to distract him, so that it is easier to destroy the world." Hawkeye rubbed his shoulders. "Leave it to Link. That guy has more experience in saving the world than anyone else." Natasha also looked irritated. "Yeah, this feeling is not pleasant." The Avengers were like performing a big play together. The battle was still going on, and their bravery and dedication could still continue to shine, but there was no place for them on the stage. They could only reluctantly step off the stage, like petals that withered prematurely on a flower, falling down and watching the unfinished story with the soil. "He's fine. He will definitely solve the problem and come back." Zelda put her palm on the glass and watched Sokovia falling rapidly outside the window with Princess Washang. This height should have made Princess Washang feel uncomfortable, but she seemed to ignore her own terror at this moment. Zelda was the calmest person on the scene, because what she was best at was waiting. She waited for 100 years, fighting with Ganon, and finally waiting for Link to be fully prepared and step into the palace with victory before the battle even started. At this time, Sokovia has undergone a huge change. An indescribable, strange and violent sound was heard, and even Thor quickly covered his ears. The air was shaking, and at the same time, the huge sky carrier, the most stable aircraft carrier on the planet, was shaking violently. Alarms were blaring. Rogers was looking at the scene in shock. The part of Sokovia flying in the sky was disintegrating, as if it was being pinched by an invisible giant hand, like a cookie. The whole was torn apart from the center, split into two, and then the two halves were split into smaller pieces. In a short period of time, the relatively intact building complex on the surface of Sokovia collapsed rapidly, performing a small doomsday. The huge hole was disintegrated into pieces of small stones. Like garbage on a flooded river, it was turned into a vortex. Jarvis, and the voice came from Iron Man. "Sir, the mass of Sokovia, which is floating in the air, is decreasing rapidly." Tony complained dully, "You are an artificial intelligence after all, so you should speak more precisely. At least you should make up for the tons of matter that are reduced every second." Friday is incarnated as Vision to save the world. You should also work harder. Jarvis was silent for a while, and his voice became softer. Sir, you need to calm down. I feel you are a little nervous. According to my detection, the physical laws around Sokovia have been disrupted. I cannot observe the exact data of the changes, but one thing I can guarantee is that both the disappearance of Sokovia's mass and the abnormalities of the surrounding physical laws are within the barely controllable range. Rogers lowered his head and said to Jarvis, your master has lived with Link for so long. Why doesn't he learn from his concise personality? Jarvis responded, even if Link doesn't say a word, the sir will talk to Link for a long time. Rogers remembered Link's bright smile and felt a little sad for the child for having such a talkative neighbor. Even sadder is that Rogers has now moved to New York and has become Tony's neighbor. Below Sokovia, Link officially activates the reality gem. A large number of Sokovia stones enter it. Link soon has a situation where he can't keep his spirit tight. He is like trying to make a tornado stand still, and the degree of violence is even worse. And at this moment, an orange-yellow light shot from behind and injected into the back of Link's head. It was Vision. She returned to the appearance of red skin, and the mind gem shot out a touch of soft energy, wrapping Link's brain and soul. After feeling the purity of Link's soul, Vision found that his soul was shaking violently because of the high concentration. So he increased the energy injection. Both Link and Vision were in an extremely delicate state. It was like Link holding an infinitely powerful bow and arrow, shooting at a newly formed methane cyclone in Saturn's satellite Titan, with a terrifyingly high accuracy. Link controlled the manic power of the reality gem, keeping it within the controllable range, maintaining the balance between the strong and the weak, so as not to cause the fragile space around him to collapse completely. Vision helped Link to gather his mind and soul, keep it within the acceptable range, and maintain the distance between near and far, so as not to cause Link's soul to have a strong rejection. As for the Ancient One, she stood in the void, with her eyes closed, but her hands open. She isolated a large area of time from the outside world. Slow it down, and slow it down again. Let Link and Vision have more opportunities to make mistakes and adjust, and use the power of time to isolate the strange fluctuations of the resonance of the 3 infinity gems inside. As for the last function, when Link fails, it is to forcibly reverse time. Let the chapter of time turn back to the page that can still be saved. Control, control, control. Link closed his eyes tightly. If he opened them, he would have a pair of blood red eyes. Chapter 338 Breakthrough. World will activated. It is difficult for the human spirit to concentrate so highly for too long, otherwise it will damage the soul and even permanently change the soul's mentality. Although Vision was far away from Link because she was afraid of him, but because of the power of the Mind Stone, Link's brain was captured, so she could easily understand Link's difficulties. She had to use her unique energy to soothe Link's restless soul, and even felt frightened. At present, most of the fallen Sokovia has been absorbed by the Reality Stone. From then on, the matter in this piece of the universe completely disappeared and returned to nothingness. But there is still a small part of the matter that has not been absorbed. This state needs to be maintained for a while, and Vision has clearly felt that Link's soul is on the verge of collapse, even though he is still holding on. Vision shouted to the Ancient One, "Link can't hold on any longer." The Ancient One shook his head and said nothing. Vision may be able to help Link forcibly condense his mental power to prevent his soul from collapsing, but this will cause 2 more serious consequences. First, Link's soul is very strong and vigorous, like a ball of fire. If Vision dares to force Link, he will inevitably be fiercely attacked. Even if Vision has the most powerful soul in the world, he cannot withstand the brutal counterattack from Link's instinct. Maybe the two will die together. Second, maybe Vision can suppress Link by force, but this kind of external soul power interferes with Link. It is very likely that his soul will undergo particularly terrible abnormal changes, or he will become a madman, or his soul will change his mood like the polarity of the soul. If things go wrong, an evil villain far more terrifying than the Demon King Ganon will appear. The Blackened Link is a disaster for the whole world. When Vision was in a dilemma, he could only use his most gentle soul power to comfort Link. Time passed little by little. Vision was born not long ago and was very sensitive to the perception of time. Just like for children, a day is too long. For adults, a day is too short. Vision has experienced too little time, so every minute and every second flows through her perception clearly. This also aggravated her anxiety, but she soon discovered something that puzzled her. A long time has passed since just now, and there has been constant danger. The energy release of the reality gem is also very unstable. It is frightening. Link's soul has been on the verge of collapse for a long time, but the last red line has not been broken. This makes Vision very strange, because once the mind has problems, it is difficult to solve, and it collapses and slides down until it collapses completely. As the intelligent body of the mind gem, Vision has a deep understanding of this. That is, the soul is very fragile. The more complex the soul, the more so. Low-level animals will not have mental problems, and Link's current state is indeed very abnormal, on the verge of madness. But always at the last moment, the power that can be gathered allows him to survive the last difficulty again. Is this the effect of willpower? In order to comfort Link, Vision feels Link's current reaction. This is a very uncomfortable attempt, because the pain that Link is currently suffering will be reflected to Vision. Even if there is only a slight feedback, Vision feels uncomfortable and his spirit fluctuates. In this state, the so-called willpower has become nothingness. After all, willpower is just the control a person has over his own body. Even a person with strong willpower cannot suffocate himself to death. But how does Link maintain his balance and always get through when he touches the red line? In the boundless pain, Vision seems to be one with Link. She saw Link, and there was always a big shadow in her heart. Does someone like Link also have a knot in his heart? No. That is Link's understanding of Ganon. It was so huge that Vision was shocked. Not only Vision, but also the proof of order in Link's body has been trying to burst out strong light to help Link stabilize his mind and strengthen control. Vision was feeling Link's chaotic thoughts, searching around, and seemed to have found something. In Link's heart, it seems that he has never thought that he would fail. He has always believed that he will win, and he has never questioned it. What an arrogant person is this! Exclamation mark. Does he think he can do everything? Vision secretly smacked his lips. At this time, the voice of a strange woman sounded in her heart. That's why I favor Link. Vision was shocked. The strongest courage is the courage to always believe in yourself. At the end, the mysterious woman's voice did not forget to add, of course, that's why my little believer has always been unwilling to rely on me. Link's eyes suddenly opened, and Midona and Yaya watched quietly beside him, not daring to make a sound. Seeing Link open his eyes, they felt that their breathing would stop. It's over. Link suddenly gathered the reality gem, and the suction power increased greatly. It quickly absorbed the large amount of soil, rocks, and ruins left in front of it. The reality gem was still swallowing in the empty air, swallowing space. Link forced himself to suppress the reality gem's frenzy. He had to click quickly, and his thoughts almost shot out through his sharp eyes. Then the reality gem returned to its original twisting concrete particles. The Ancient One immediately lifted the time barrier. In an instant, the sky was suddenly clear. Success. The command room of the sky carrier was instantly boiling. Because the flow of time in the outside world is much faster than that in Link's space, the reaction of Sokovia is even more violent. Especially when Link's control is problematic. Everyone's hearts are also out of control. Finally, Sokovia suddenly disappeared, and Link and the other two appeared in the sky. The tension broke out at once. Thor laughed and patted Tony. 3 Infinity Stones are on the stage together. What a great moment. Tony listened stiffly to the urgent sound of the alarm from Iron Man. Link was panting violently, and was about to fall in the sky. Vision rushed over and supported Link. He saw that Link was already soaked, and his shoulders were shaking slightly. Midona and Fang rushed over. Link forced a smile. This made Vision feel a little relieved. Although he had experienced such a thing, Link's eyes were still clear. Although his soul was weak and his body was overdrawn, Link was still healthy and strong. Vision smiled and said, "Great. Link, you succeeded." Link smiled and looked at Vision. Wasn't this girl, who was born not long ago, afraid of him anymore? Good news. Wait. Why did you get a rash on your neck? Has your fear of me become serious enough to become physiological? Vision let go of Link with a wry smile. At this moment, the double wing pattern on Link's left wrist began to emit a soft rainbow light, which then spread to Link's whole body. Then, in Link's heart, the goddess' joyful voice came. Congratulations, you have finally opened the will of the world. Chapter 339 God's Perspective. Link was in doubt. When the voice of Goddess Hylia came to his mind, everything around him suddenly became clear in his eyes. The so-called world will of Goddess Hylia released light on Link's wrist, but it did not enhance Link's strength. But the world in front of Link has changed dramatically. It was as if he had been a myopic patient with severe retinal detachment before, and now he suddenly had an operation, and the blurry scene in front of him suddenly became clear in a stiff and violent way. This made Link's already tired brain feel pain immediately. Goddess Hylia's gentle voice came like the sea water. After this trial, your soul is strong enough, and things like Ganon's sneak attack on your soul will never happen again. You belong to the heart of a brave man, and you have experienced another major test. This shows that you are capable of opening the world will. Remember what I said? The world will make the whole world stand on your side and help you fight against the power of writing. Tell me, what did you see? Link couldn't say what he saw, but he felt that the world around him was clearer. But this is the real strange thing. Unlike Zelda, who is short-sighted and often suffers from poor eyesight, Link is the strongest shooter in Hyrule, which means that he has extremely strong and sharp eyesight. In this case, what makes his vision clearer again? Goddess Hylia knew Link's doubts, and her soft voice did not wait for Link to speak, but sounded again. Observe the expressions of others looking at you. So Link looked at Midona, who was staring at him from a close distance. Midona's eyes were very big, and at this moment, this pair of big watery eyes looked at him a little puzzled. Of course, Midona looked at him with this expression quite often. After all, strange things always happen. But Midona said in surprise, Link, your eyes have turned golden? Yair also nodded excitedly. She thought Link's current eye color was very beautiful, as gentle as the sun. Link was very curious, blinked, and suddenly found something interesting. Why can he see the scenery behind Midona as far as his eyes can reach? Link looked at Vision this time. When Vision saw Link's eyes sweeping over her, her body suddenly became a little stiff. Although she knew that Link would not bite her for no reason, she was still very afraid of Link from a physiological level. It was the same reason that humans naturally hate spiders and worms. Even if they don't hate them, they will feel uncomfortable. Vision also noticed that Link's eyes, like the mind gem on her forehead, turned into a brilliant gold, as if he could see through everything. And Link was indeed like that, and could clearly see the scenery behind Vision. My eyes can see through! Exclamation mark. Link was shocked. But then he was confused again, because it seemed that it was not as simple as seeing through. If it was a perspective eye, he would definitely penetrate Vision's clothes and skin and directly see her internal state, but it couldn't. Link was suddenly stunned again. He found a gaze coming from behind him. Ancient One was walking leisurely from the air. People who move slowly, no matter how fat, vain, beautiful or ugly, will naturally have a kind of elegance. Ancient One just walked like that, as if there were 100 cameras around her staring at her. But this is not the point. The point is, Ancient One was behind Link, but he didn't turn his head. Goddess Hylia said, let your eyes follow the wind. Your eyes no longer have blind spots, and the element of the world around you are added to your perception. This is the reward for the first stage of the will of the world, the eagle eye perspective. Eagle eye perspective. Let's not complain about this somewhat regrettable name. Link blinked, knowing what it meant. He is best at sneak attacks, attacking from the enemy's back, and can hit 8 times the normal attack in a scene where the enemy cannot detect. And since Link has obtained the current all-round vision without blind spots, it will be difficult for others to sneak attack him. And Link's combat range will be further increased. The will of the goddess, the will of the world. Just like watching a movie, the audience is always smarter than the characters in the play. Because they look at things from a third-party perspective, they can be more rational. Although this does not provide Link with direct power, it has very effective tactical value. From now on, he will completely surpass Tony and Princess Washang, and become the strongest character in group battles on Earth. Link blinked, and the golden light in his eyes receded, returning to its original clear blue color. This kind of perspective is indeed very exhausting, because he is asking for perspective from the element of the world around him. This is equivalent to seeing things with the soul instead of the eyes, so it consumes more energy. Midona asked, Link, what happened to you just now? Your eyes are glowing. Have you awakened something powerful again? She blinked her big eyes happily, and Link nodded. Can you attack with rays-like vision? Link smiled bitterly and shook his head. What he just got was much more powerful than lasers from his eyes. Midona's face immediately fell. You can't shoot lasers. I was so happy for nothing. Ancient One came over. The wind was strong at high altitude, but her weak voice came through clearly. You saved the residents here. In fact, I wanted to persuade you to give up the lives of Sokovia and just blow up the fallen land instead of using the more dangerous reality stone. Because if you forcibly rescue this small group of people, it will only put a larger group of people in potential disaster. But I also saw my future, and I can't convince you. This may be your weakness. You don't know how to choose. If one day you have to choose between two things that you find difficult to choose, your choice may be fatal. Link listened, but shook his head. Midona hugged Link's neck and said on behalf of Link, your question is so annoying. Let's talk about it after it happens. You said so many weird things. How can Link answer? Just say whatever you want to say. Ancient One smiled and said, okay. I hope you have time to go to where I live, Kamatage. I have something to ask of you. Midona noticed that Ancient One's eyes were not looking at Link, but rather at her. It made her feel a little uneasy, not knowing what this mysterious woman in every move was going to do. Link nodded, indicating that he agreed. Is it about Dormammu? Link is very strong, but only in the real world. It is impossible for Link to use the shield to counter Dormammu, right? Chapter 340 A perfect ending. Behind Ancient One, a spark circle appeared, flashing with light. In the spark circle was an ancient temple, and a man in a brown-red robe could be seen walking by. We will meet again soon. Goodbye. Ancient One nodded slightly. Link and Vision watched her walk into the circle of light. Midona was surprised. A space channel? That thing feels so hot, it might catch fire on my hair. No wonder she shaved her head. Vision was full of melancholy. There are 3 infinity stones on Earth, which is not a good thing. It will attract the covetousness of unknown enemies. After hearing what Vision said, Midona took back the other particles and looked at Vision. So, do you want me to throw the reality stone to the end of the universe? Or let Link throw you to the end of the universe? Or you go and snatch the time stone from that super powerful bald woman and throw it to the end of the universe? Vision said weakly, I don't think I can beat the Ancient One. Midona said, you can't beat Link either. Why don't you send yourself to the end of the universe? Link thought about it and decided to say, you, me, and the Ancient One all have the ability to protect the reality stone. That's enough. Link has always had a doubt. That is, how does his current strength compare to Thanos? The strength of the Marvel Universe is very vague. But according to Link's personal experience, he made a comparison of the strength of the Avengers. First of all, Hawkeye and Natasha, as ordinary people, are not as terrible as they seem on paper. They both play a very important role in the battle. Especially as agents, they have strong reconnaissance and interrogation capabilities. Natasha easily got Loki's words. Hawkeye's assassination skills are very strong. And Tony is also an ordinary person. Of course his brain is not in this range. He uses technology to support the Avengers. After the departure of Captain America and others, he strives to maintain the image of the Avengers in the public. If anyone contributes the most to the Avengers, it is of course Tony. Tony has limits, but Iron Man has no limits. Link is still unaware of it, and it is not clear to what extent Tony will play Iron Man. In the sky, there is also an unused satellite Veronica, which contains an anti-Hulk device. Although it is an anti-Hulk armor, Link knows that the focus of that thing is airstrikes, and lightning protection and low temperature. It is self-evident what Tony wants to do. He wants to compare with Link. After all, Tony has his own stubbornness. If the Earth can only rely on aliens, uncontrollable mutant monsters, and short-lived super soldiers to protect it, it will be really hopeless. Tony's actual combat ability is second only to Thor and Hulk in Link's heart. As for Vision and Scarlet Witch, their strength on paper is also terrifying, but for some reason, perhaps because of their personality, their performance is always unsatisfactory. Maybe they are too young and need to grow up. After all, Vision was only 2 days old, and Wanda has awakened her superpowers for only a few days. And Thor and Hulk need no more words. The two are one level higher than all the Avengers except Link. They have extremely strong actual combat capabilities and great potential. As enemies, if Thor and Hulk are not killed immediately, then wait for the two to burst out with more incredible strength and make a comeback. The awakened Thor who obtained the Thunder Axe can seriously injure Thanos, although it mainly relies on surprise attacks. And let Link face the current Thor, of course, he can easily deal with it. First, Link is not afraid of Thor's lightning attack. Second, he and Thor are teammates. Link knows Thor's background, but Thor doesn't know Link's. Thanos easily beats the awakened version of Thor with bare hands. In a corner of the universe, Thanos has obtained the Infinity Gauntlet and started his own plan. As the current owner of the Reality Stone, Link will soon face Thanos. What will happen if it's one-on-one? After defeating Thanos, there will be a blank in the Marvel plot. Link knows that by that time, his battle has just begun. His duel with Ganon will also enter a white-hot stage. Instead of thinking about this kind of stumbling with his men, Link flew back to the Sky Carrier and was greeted by the applause of everyone in the Sky Carrier, cheering for his and Vision's names. Vision nodded gently in greeting, and he and Link landed. Nick stepped forward. Boy, good job. He was very calm, but Hill next to him knew. Before Link succeeded, Nick was particularly panicked. He had just wiped the sweat off his dark head. Led by Pepper, the two princesses came to Link. Princess Washang said softly, another difficult battle, right? Link smiled and nodded. Zelda smiled happily and wiped the dirty sweat on Link's forehead with a handkerchief. I don't know when the next battle will happen, but we are at peace after all, and maybe we can be stable for a long time. I hope so. Perhaps because of Link's arrival, the Marvel plot is very crowded, one thing after another. New York has been destroyed several times. Thor raised Thor's hammer high to celebrate the victory. We need a grand celebration. Tony clapped his hands. Okay, I invite everyone present to visit the Avengers building and have a party so that humans will not repeat the mistakes of the dinosaur wizards. Natasha smiled and looked at Hawkeye who was blowing air into his wound. Tony's party? It feels boring. Hawkeye nodded. That's right. Expensive but tasteless red wine, casual food that suits Tony's style, and celebrities who came out of nowhere, vulgar but rich, and a lot of beauties from all over the world. Link looked left and right in the cheering crowd and found that he didn't find Banner. He jumped in his heart and knew that he had overlooked something. Did the plot still happen as it was originally? Banner left mischievously, ran to a garbage planet to play boxing. He asked Tony hurriedly. Tony said, Banner, isn't he there? Banner was seen lying on the table, dejected, and seemed to have suffered a great blow. Tony smiled and said, this is the sadness of superheroes. They are always hurt by the people they protect. Hulk rescued a little girl from 4 fierce Ultron robots, but after the little girl got on the airship, she was scared away from Hulk. Hulk was furious on the spot. If Natasha hadn't run to mediate, Hulk might have chewed up the airship. It would be better if he didn't leave. The plotline developed so fast. When Thanos arrives, we must be wary of the Avengers splitting up. Thor can't do anything about it. He has his own National Guard. And it's better for Hulk to stay on Earth. If the Civil War breaks out again, Link and Hulk are there. Captain America and Iron Man who are in conflict will find that there is a more terrifying double K combination besides their two factions. See how they fight among themselves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 341 The Secret of the Sky Princess. Hearing that Thor was leaving, the celebration of victory also had the meaning of seeing him off. Recently, everyone has been very concerned about Thor. The concern for Thor is even greater than that for Pepper. because Thor was heartbroken. At first, no one knew, and Thor did not say anything. But Natasha somehow learned about this regrettable thing from Eric. Ah, yes. She dumped me, or you can say that I dumped her. After all, there is a big generation gap. She is a scientist, and I don't even know what Jegu is. Thor smiled calmly. He said very casually, breaking up is a very embarrassing thing, because you don't know what happened, and this story is over. Then the question is, if the breakup is caused by you, then why are you powerless in this relationship? You have finished your lines, the scene is over, the heroine leaves, the lights dim, and you can only continue to stand on the stage. It's not your fault, but it doesn't mean anything. As a result, she started crying. Everyone was embarrassed. They didn't expect that Thor also had such a delicate and fragile side. Loki couldn't stand it, so he sat beside Thor and patted his shoulder. Alright. Don't take that woman seriously, or I'll go kill her. No, I'm just kidding. Don't use a hammer. Besides, that woman doesn't deserve you, right? Think about it. You're such a fool, and that woman still doesn't deserve you, which means that the woman is worse. No. You can't use a hammer when I talk. How can we communicate in the future? Oh, don't cry. Tony has started recording. Loki is in a complicated mood now. He is very happy that his brother has broken up, and he wants to laugh at his brother when he sees him making a fool of himself, but the Iron Man actually cries, which makes Loki want to comfort him. So Loki can only be sarcastic, mocking, joking, and sincerely comforting Thor. Rogers drank his wine, looked at the lost Thor, and said, "Broken heart? It seems that everyone has a fragile side." Hawkeye shook his wine glass. He had the worst alcohol tolerance, and was already a little drunk. I've passed that stage. With gauze wrapped around his hands, he pressed his two fat white fists against the sides of the cup, and drank the juice carefully. Quicksilver said longingly, "I also want to have a heart-wrenching, unforgettable love." Vision frowned and checked the apple in her palm. Tony told her that she could eat this kind of thing, but Vision still had some doubts. Hearing Quicksilver's words, she looked up in confusion. "Why do you have such a stupid idea?" Quicksilver was a little annoyed. Scarlet Witch tried to control a grape and fly it into her mouth through the air. As a result, the grape flew out like a bullet and hit the forehead of an old man wearing sunglasses behind her. The old man in sunglasses fell straight down, muttering stiffly, "Another observer from outside the universe is plotting against me?" Then two young men hurriedly helped him up and took him to check. Scarlet Witch was sitting on the sofa, not daring to stick her head out. Then a man in a suit sat next to her. Tony smiled at the Scarlet Witch, who was full of perfume, and said, "Have you thought about it? You should know that the ones who trained you are Rogers and Natasha." Tony was talking about Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Falcon, and Vision joining the Avengers. Since Thor is leaving, and Hawkeye is retiring, the Avengers need to expand. Link and Tony both suggested that the two children join the Avengers. Quicksilver clumsily finished his juice and said, "Maybe the Avengers need a communicator who is faster than a fax machine." "Of course, I'm good at fighting." Scarlet Witch nodded. "I think there will be no problem with the organization we joined this time." Tony nodded. "Of course there will be no problem this time. We don't like eating bananas, nor do we like destroying the world." Vision puzzled. "Mr. Stark, where is the other new Avenger?" Tony said, "I don't know. He was invited by Rogers. He is a retired soldier with very old-fashioned wings. I will upgrade his equipment, otherwise I will feel uncomfortable looking at him. And of course what do you need?" Quicksilver answered directly, "A pair of the most expensive Adidas." Tony. Scarlet Witch was eager to try a wardrobe full of gorgeous dresses that you can never wear out. "I like red." Tony. Vision said cutely, "No need, my cloak looks good." Tony. Pepper appeared from nowhere and shouted excitedly, "Yeah, haha." So Tony stood up leisurely and said, okay. A pair of powerful shoes that can kick a football to the moon, an invulnerable red battle skirt, and a toddler cape that automatically plays children's stories. I will prepare them for you." "Oh, these kids." So he rubbed his head and left. As for Link didn't like this kind of alcohol-filled party. He knocked on the door of the Sky Princess, forcing her to come out. "No, I won't go out." The Sky Princess's nice but stubborn voice came from inside. Link looked helpless. He didn't know what happened to the Sky Princess. When he saw the Sky Princess on the mothership, he saw that she was wearing an oversized doll head cover to cover her face. She was embarrassedly helped by the Washang Princess to wipe back to the room. So he turned his attention to the other two princesses. Zelda smiled bitterly. "You'd better ask the Sky Princess yourself. It's not convenient for me to say. The relationship between the three Zeldas is very delicate. The delicate things between girls are always complicated." Washang Princess also nodded. She didn't want to go against the wishes of the Sky Princess. And what happened to the Sky Princess was not a big deal, just a little. But the Sky Princess's behavior made Link very worried. He continued to knock on the door. The Sky Princess voice came from the door again. "Please, at least not now." Of course Link could force the door open, but he didn't want to do that. He respected Zelda very much and naturally would not do such an excessive thing in the name of concern. So he decided, yeah, please do me a favor, burn the door. Let someone else do such an excessive thing. Midona stuck out her tongue and expressed her disdain for Link's behavior. When Yaya heard that Link needed her help, she immediately flew up excitedly. When she was about to burn the door, suddenly, a scream came from the door, which suddenly changed the atmosphere. Zelda hurriedly said, "What happened?" And Link didn't care about so much. The sword pierced out, the door broke open, and he rushed in. Chapter 342, The Change of Curse Power. Link slashed down with his sword. The door was expensive and solid, in line with the usual characteristics of Tony's industry, but under Link's blade, it disintegrated like paper, turning into a pile of fine wood chips. Rushing in with his head full of floating wood chips, Link shouted, "Zelda, what are you?" And then his voice stopped abruptly. Midona opened her mouth wide. "Oh my god, this is not." And Yaya grinned, with an expression of surprise and some hatred. The two princesses also rushed in, and saw the Sky Princess curled up on the bed with a horrified expression. The Sky Princess's face was flushed. She was wearing too thin clothes, revealing a large area of delicate skin. There were a lot of cosmetic boxes around, and because the windows were closed and the curtains were drawn, the room was filled with the fragrance of cosmetic paste. With Zelda's skin and appearance, did she need cosmetics? This behavior was like brushing a layer of white paint on the beautiful peony petals. But everyone present knew why the Sky Princess did this. Because Link opened his hand, and an ice wall rose up, blocking the door he had broken. After all, the Sky Princess was now disheveled. He was shocked. The Sky Princess looked embarrassed and frustrated. She sat on the bed, covering her face with her hands. But even so, she couldn't completely hide the dense black spells on her skin. Zelda explained, the power of the Ganon curse in her body is very stubborn and difficult to completely remove. It often recurs. Somehow, one day, the power of the Ganon curse suddenly transferred from her body and covered her skin. Princess Washang took a coat from the closet and covered the Sky Princess. The Sky Princess' face was red, and her blushing skin could be seen through her fingers. Obviously, the appearance of so many annoying black spells on her face and body made her very embarrassed. Link could also understand why the Sky Princess didn't want to see him. He thought that the Sky Princess had a skin disease like vision, since the body made of vibranium would get a psychological rash because of Link. It's not surprising that the Sky Princess has acne on her face. That's why she wants to use so much makeup to cover the black spells on her face and body. He guessed partly right. The Sky Princess skin is indeed problematic, but it's much more serious than acne. Why didn't you tell me? Link looked at Zelda and the Sky Princess who helped the Sky Princess conceal it. These two girls are not people who don't know the seriousness of the matter. The power of Ganon's curse remains in the body, which is big or small. But Link can't accept it. The three princesses actually concealed it from him in such a sensitive place. He would never blame Zelda, so he didn't know what to say. Although Link didn't say much, the three princesses suddenly felt depressed when they saw Link's slightly gloomy face. The Sky Princess was a little panicked and hurriedly explained, "Our physiques are inherently resistant to Ganon pollution. This is just a little bit. My body will eliminate it. It's just stubborn, and this kind of thing undoubtedly damaged Link's trust in the three princesses." The atmosphere was very depressing. He had never been angry with the princesses, but this was exactly what happened. This state made the three princesses even more uneasy. Seeing this, the Sky Princess gritted her teeth and told the real reason. When the attack occurred, Link, your strength had already declined. If I tell you this, you will definitely help me clean up the curse power in my body. But I'm afraid that you will do the same as last time. Like last time. Link was stunned and remembered what happened when he saved the Sky Princess. Ganon's deliberate soul attack almost caused Link's soul to collapse. Thanks to the timely rescue of the goddess Hylia, this was saved. But Link's soul was still damaged, causing him to temporarily lose the ability to speak. Even if he recovered, Link's desire to speak was decreasing day by day. The Sky Princess has always been extremely self-blaming in her heart. When she found that there was a problem with the curse power in her body, the first thing she thought of was not to let Link find out. She was afraid that Link would be hurt because of her again. And Zelda seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "That's right. We asked Goddess Hylia whether the power of Ganon's curse in Zelda's body was harmful. It was Goddess Hylia who told us that it was okay, so we didn't tell you." Yeah, that's it. Princess Washang also agreed with this statement. Princess Sky also grasped this point, and a little vague expectation appeared on her face. She put down the little hand covering her face and hurriedly said, "That's right. We believe in Goddess Hylia's judgment, so we are relieved not to tell you." They were very panicked, because Link was too important to them if there was a rift in their relationship with him. Because of this kind of thing, the three princesses would regret it for the rest of their lives. Link's eyes twitched. These three girls, each one of them was the most devout believer of Goddess Hylia. As a result, they were afraid of Link's blame and tried their best to push the blame on Goddess Hylia. Since it was Goddess Hylia who said it, Link was a little relieved. Although Goddess Hylia had been shattered from a high-ranking god who created countless time and space into a remnant soul that could only live in the small Marvel world and even had no body, but she still possesses the supreme will of the world. Link believes in her judgment. However, the black spell formed by the power of Ganon's curse on the Sky Princess is too eye-catching. It even changes the temperament of the Sky Princess, which is very strange, a bit like the Dark Link in the past. So after the Sky Princess put on her dress, Link took the princesses and ran to the goddess Hylia to question the crime. Of course, questioning the crime was a joke, but Link had to ask the goddess's exact thoughts. And before opening the door, the Sky Princess screamed, and later she explained that it was because the black runes on her body suddenly flowed. This made Link feel uneasy. In any case, anything related to Ganon is not a good thing. The statue of the goddess Hylia was placed in Peppa's room by Link. Peppa's room is the largest, with the size of 2 basketball courts, full of green vegetation, and an artificial river, like a jungle. This is in a high-rise building, and it is difficult to tinker with these things. Tony is completely raising Peppa as his son. Link knew that the goddess liked nature, so he put her in Peppa's room, and Peppa was of course very welcome. He chatted with the goddess all night, but as far as Link knew, the goddess didn't pay much attention to Peppa. Chapter 343 Goddess explains the Princess of the Night. The princesses and Link came to the goddess statue. Link didn't need to speak, he just asked with his mind, "Goddess, can you tell me the condition of the Sky Princess?" When Link had doubts in his mind, the crystal statue immediately released colorful light and made a familiar and wonderful murmur. Link is indeed special. The three princesses looked at each other. They also tried to communicate with the goddess, but not every time they responded. But Link was different. Almost every time he got feedback, it was still that kind of clear will. The recovery that Zelda and others got was almost just a vague feeling. For example, when they asked about the physical condition of the Sky Princess, the information they got was very simple. Just 2 words. Nothing happened. The voice of the goddess resounded in the hearts of everyone present. At the party, Peppa, who was concentrating on watching the heroes trying to lift Thor's hammer, suddenly raised his head and said oh. He vaguely heard the slight fluctuations of the goddess awakening. So he turned around and flew to his own super large room. Because of the haste, the old man in sunglasses who was attacked by Wanda was knocked to the ground with a bang. The old man in sunglasses held up Peppa and said in an annoyed voice, "Boy, if you were my character, I would set you as Hulk's food." Back to Link. There were slight murmurs around, and the words of Goddess Hylia floated in his mind. Child, the Princess of Skysword just had some strange changes. She will be fine. Link continued to ask, but this is Ganon's power, which remains in her body. How can it not have an effect? The three princesses also heard Link's voice and were surprised. The Sky Princess felt warm in her heart, and felt that these black spells on her body were not so hateful. After all, Link was questioning Goddess Hylia for her. In order to awaken the sacred power in her heart, Zelda had prayed to the goddess countless times, but she only got silence, and needed to find the answer herself. To others, Goddess Hylia was both noble and indifferent. Link was treated differently. The goddess voice sounded again. My child, you misunderstood. The power of Ganon's curse is not in the Sky Princess body. It is the power of Ganon's curse that erodes Zelda's constitution excessively and distorts it into a purer and more basic element of the world, dark energy. Zelda suddenly whispered to the Wuxian princess beside her, the dark energy that Earth scientists talk about. Wuxian princess shook her head. Obviously it's not the same thing. Haven't you studied quantum physics? Zelda smiled awkwardly and dodged her eyes. I can't understand that thing at all. Dark energy. Link frowned. What's the difference between this and Ganon's energy? Ganon represents darkness. The goddess voice continued to explain. That's not the case. There is day and night, and light and darkness are generated by each other. Ganon is not the same as darkness. He actually represents death. Similarly, the dark energy gathered in the Sky Princess body is also different from that of Midona and other Shadow Kingdoms. The Shadow Kingdom is more like a mirror of the world. Link. Well, there are so many distinctions in dark energy, and there are so many doors and windows. The Ganon curse caused an irreversible change in Zelda's Sky Princess physique. Something similar has happened to your body, but it's not as serious. She is about to awaken a completely different energy from the other princesses, and may be able to help you on your adventure, which is not a bad thing. Child, do you have any questions? Link nodded and continued to ask, Goddess, why did you pretend to be a system to deceive me before? Goddess Hylia suddenly stopped talking, and the light disappeared, returning to an ordinary crystal statue. You answer me. Link turned his head, and looked at the Sky Princess. The Sky Princess looked at the black spell in her hand in confusion, and whispered, if it is true as the goddess said, I can help you, Link, then these ugly spells on your body are acceptable. The Sky Princess was relieved and smiled comfortably at Link. Her smile was like the lake water in the deep forest in summer, and Link's heart jumped. She has always been ashamed of these ugly black lines on her body, and doesn't want to see people. Link's eyes became softer. Her smile inadvertently made her let go of her hostility towards the dark energy in her body. The dense black lines on her face suddenly began to flow again, and the dim light above her head, which imitated the sun shining through the forest, suddenly dimmed. A different kind of fluctuation rippled out from the Sky Princess body. Link's body tensed up. But as Goddess Hylia said, it was indeed different from Ganon's cursed power. At least in his weapon space, the exorcist sword that hated evil did not react at all. Some pain appeared on the Sky Princess face. She said, my body is so strange. Link took a deep breath, and he could do nothing to help her now. The dark lines on the Sky Princess's body flowed faster and faster, and suddenly disappeared, turning into transparent and colorless energy that constantly washed over the Sky Princess body, causing her casually put on dress to flutter. The Sky Princess also floated up. Link could clearly sense that a big change had taken place in her body. The originally bright and clean aura of light gradually dimmed, and an inexplicable temperament grew out of thin air, deep and silent. Midona had been silent, but at this moment, she yawned. Hate, my character as a charming dark princess is going to be taken away by someone else? Charming? Yeah, looked at Midona with disdain. The Sky Princess was suddenly shrouded in darkness, and Link could only see the soft curves of her body outlined by the shadow. Bang, a muffled sound. The people who were gathering downstairs saw a flash in front of their eyes, and all the shining things around them suddenly fell into darkness, and no longer shone. Thor scratched his head. Is there a power outage here? No problem. I have plenty of electricity, Tony shouted. Don't mess around. Thor raised his hammer high, intending to release lightning. But it kept crackling, making Natasha and Loki's long hair fluffy. But there was still no light. Tony looked out the French window in the night and saw that New York was also in darkness. In contrast, there was the unusually bright starlight above New York. In downtown New York, it was very normal to have such a nearly clean night sky. Downstairs, in the extreme darkness, a little bit of starlight suddenly burst out. Gradually, the figure of the Sky Princess was outlined. The Sky Princess appeared in front of everyone with a blank look in her eyes, and except for her, the surroundings were still dark. She was shrouded by the only light. She thought, and the surroundings immediately became bright again. Chapter 344, Energy of Night. Whoa! Midna exclaimed. Regardless of the chaos that had occurred in New York after the brief loss of sight, the Sky Princess in front of her had undergone some changes in appearance. Her long brilliant hair, which was Zelda's signature, was dyed by the power of darkness into a beautiful silver grey color, as gorgeous as the tail of a comet. Zelda's iconic blue eyes were rendered dark gold, like the golden reflections in an autumn lake. The Sky Princess skin had turned white. Her skin was already very white, but now it was like white jade. The healthy blush on her face was gone. What's wrong with me? The Sky Princess asked cautiously when she saw everyone's strange faces. At the same time, she looked at her hands, worried that she had turned into the same grey skin color as Midna. Of course Midna was still very cute, but that skin color was unacceptable to the Sky Princess. Midna smiled and took out the small mirror she carried with her and handed it to the Sky Princess. She took the mirror nervously and looked at it carefully. The Sky Princess exclaimed in a low voice, "My hair. My eyes." Midona comforted her. "It's okay, you are still very beautiful. And much better than before. Otherwise you all have golden hair and blue eyes, and you feel like Link's sister or younger sister." "Really?" The Sky Princess forced a smile. "Oh, that's better than the strange spells on your body before." She was a little worried, so she tried to turn around twice in front of Link and asked, "Link, can you accept my current appearance? Silver hair, dark gold eyes, white skin, gives people a very cold and distant temperament." But when the Sky Princess moved, her innate lively temperament broke this effect. But the changes in appearance and inequalities still brought some changes to her temperament. Strictly speaking, in her world, the Sky Princess is the mayor's daughter of the Sky City, not a princess. So she is also the least like a princess among the three Zeldas. She is not. Zelda is a silent princess who loves to study. Among the three, she looks the youngest, likes to frown the most, and likes to laugh the most. Princess Washan was very reserved, smiling economically, and her every move was as graceful as dancing, even in battle. The moves she made were as rhythmic as the music she played on the harp. Princess Sky was like a girl next door, energetic and lively. She liked flying and the blue sky, and was the one who loved adventure the most among the three princesses, and the one who matched Link's personality the most. But she was also the most ordinary one. The changes brought about by the dark energy this time finally made Princess Sky feel a bit like a princess, becoming a bit dazzling and making people want to bow their heads. Link nodded with a smile on his face. Seeing that Link agreed, Princess Sky was also grateful to hold her hands together, squinting her eyes and smiled. "That's good." Princess Sky smiled like this, and it felt like a diamond gently turning under the sun. She was indeed glowing. The outline of the edge of Princess Sky's body suddenly shone with the light of the starry sky. Princess Sky herself also found something wrong, and was a little speechless. As a result, her energy was out of control. A dark energy appeared in front of her. In the darkness, two glittering stars were born, as big as Link's fist. They spun around each other, faster and faster, and burst out with a sharp breath. She exclaimed, "What's wrong with me?" Princess Washan calmly raised her weapon. "It's okay. It may be the energy, time and space. I can feel that your dim energy is only condensing and becoming destructive." Link pulled Zelda behind him, and Midona squinted and watched the two stars spinning at high speed. Suddenly, the black curtain broke, and the two stars were thrown out like flying saucers, attacking the front. Princess Sky hurriedly shouted, "Be careful." Princess Washan whispered in agreement. Her eyes became sharp, and she raised her hand and swung out a sword energy, shining a light, slashing towards the attacking starlight and circling. But as a sword energy approached, Princess Washan was surprised to find that her sharp sword energy quickly dimmed, was torn apart by the dancing starlight, and then circled to attack Princess Washan. At this time, Link took a step forward and thrust out his master sword, stabbing into the rushing starlight dance. He immediately felt his own energy being absorbed. Link simply increased the energy penetration, and finally two high-speed rotating starlights exploded at the same time. The Washan princess was very surprised. "Link, you also found it?" Link nodded, and Midona's eyes lit up and looked at the Sky Princess. "Zelda, do you feel that the energy in your body has increased a little?" The Sky Princess felt her body blankly, opened her eyes quickly, and nodded seriously. "Yes, I feel that there is power flowing into my body. Did I just absorb the energy of Link and Zelda?" Link nodded. He felt a little headache about the titles between the three Zeldas. The changes of the Sky Princess surprised him. This dark attribute energy has the characteristic of absorbing energy for its own use. She has just awakened and is out of control. The sudden starlight energy just now was used in a clumsy way. After Link's guidance, the Sky Princess will have a very strong combat ability. Of course, Link didn't want the princess to go to the battlefield, but he was happy to see that the princess had the ability to protect herself. At this time, Peppa ran over with Tony in a panic. Tony panted and said, "Link, what's going on here? Jarvis just detected an unusual energy from here." "Princess." Tony only called Zelda Zelda, and the other two called them princesses like Link did, so that they could be distinguished. He saw the Sky Princess, whose eye color, long hair, and temperament had all undergone complex changes. He opened his mouth slightly, was stunned for a while, and then said, "Princess, if you want to dye your hair, wait until I develop a harmless hair dye. Of course, with the physique of you Hylians, you don't have to worry about your body being damaged." But at this moment, the Sky Princess body, including the hair that was blown up by the wind, was floating with faint starlight. This made Tony a little confused. "What brand of hair dye did you use? I feel like this unscrupulous manufacturer put some incredible stuff in it." The Sky Princess said in a bitter voice. "What should I do? Link, I can't control my energy again." Then she released a large amount of starlight from the edge of her body. Peppa cheered. "It looks great." The Washan princess hurriedly stood in front of Tony and Peppa, who were not prepared, swept them away with a sword, and then said, "It's also dangerous." Chapter 345 Newcomer. Are you leaving just like that? You've lived for more than 1,000 years, and you'll live even longer. Time is too abundant for you. Even if you stay on Earth for another 1 or 2 years, it won't matter, right? Tony put his hands in his trouser pockets and said goodbye to Thor with Rogers, Link and others, and tried to persuade him to stay for the last time. Thor looked up at the sky, which was clear and filled with a pleasant smell in the air. It was the last time to leave. He turned around and smiled. "Indeed, the people of Asgard have a poor sense of time, but the 9 realms need me, and they need strong protection. The war is spreading, and as the son of Odin, I want to restore order to them. Moreover," he looked at a red figure in the newly built Avengers base, standing in the air inside, and looking at him, and waving his hand. Thor said seriously, "Goodbye, Asgard will never forget the names of the heroes. As for you," Loki was smiling on the side. Seeing his stubborn brother's gaze, he raised his eyebrows. His mind swayed slightly. "I think I need to stay on Earth to reform myself. So you should go back alone." Thor snorted. "You are just afraid of your father's punishment and imprisonment." Loki smiled cunningly. "Yes, my brother is not afraid of my father's blame at all. Even as a god, he believes in another god." Thor's face froze, and he coughed twice. "I will convince my father. Goddess Hylia is my permanent belief." Link and Zelda smiled secretly, not knowing how Goddess Hylia viewed this devout believer in life. Banner patted Thor's shoulder. "Every time there is thunder, I'm afraid I will think it is you who has returned to Earth. I look forward to seeing you again next time." Thor smiled. "Of course. Earth is also the area I want to protect." He is a straightforward person. He immediately raised Thor's hammer and shouted, "Heimdall." A flash of colorful lightning flashed, and Thor disappeared. A large piece of charred black circular pattern was left on the ground. Tony had asked Jarvis to decipher the meaning of this pattern a long time ago. The result was disappointing. Just some poems praising Thor's father, Thor's father's father, and Thor's father's father's father. Tony sighed, what a cool man. I'm afraid the only shortcoming is that he doesn't know how to maintain the grass. Hawkeye has retired, and to be honest, I'm a little tired. I should also build a farm, grazing, fishing, farming and other fun. I think Ethan needs a humorous neighbor. Tony has been in touch with his old friend Ethan. He remembers clearly when he built the first mecha together, and when Link crawled out of the ruins in a daze. From that day on, Tony's life trajectory began to stride towards the path of a superhero, and what he did along the way even surprised himself. Roger smiled. Yes, we are indeed a little old, but the new power has not grown up yet, and we must continue to work hard. Compared with Tony's increasingly sentimental, Roger's is also different from the original time and space. Since waking up, he has disappeared for 70 years, which has made him feel dead. At this moment in another time and space, Roger said to Tony seriously, my heart has been frozen 70 years ago. But it's different now. Link and Zelda have the same experience, and it's even worse and longer. After sleeping for 100 years, the world collapsed. When Pepper told Rogers how Link fought in the ruins, and how he was at a loss to find his bitter memories. Whenever Link returned to the Chloro Forest, he was always injured. Even so, Link's eyes were still clear. He was still like a blank sheet of paper, always full of energy, always full of appetite, and always full of fighting spirit to run and fight. With such a new friend here, Rogers naturally wouldn't linger over. Tony hugged his arms and saw Vision lying on the window and smiling at him innocently. So he said, the age structure of our organization is very problematic. There are people over 1,500 years old and children less than 2 weeks old. Roger smiled. Peter and Wanda are not yet adults. Is it really okay for us to recruit them like this? By the way, how did you convince their parents? Tony shrugged. The salary is high and the life is guaranteed. The Avengers is better than the ridiculous ninja organization before, right? Oh, I should go too. Pepper wants to ask me something. So he got in the car and left. Tony did not have a driver's license, which once caused controversy, but Tony defended himself. This doesn't mean anything. My Iron Man also drove without a license. Is the traffic police going to put a ticket on my forehead while I'm on my way to fight evil? Everyone returned to the Avengers base. On the way, they ran into Natasha. She seemed to have just finished talking to Nick. The bald man left mysteriously, still wearing a windbreaker on a hot day. Everyone thought that Nick might have some misunderstanding of the word handsome. Banner asked with a smile, now, how are our new teammates? Natasha replied, they lack training. They will become excellent warriors. Rogers and Natasha are the main instructors of the new Avengers. Hawkeye retired. Tony is too willful. Banner has a good temper and Hulk has a bad temper. Link is also a good candidate for an instructor. When he was 12 or 13 years old, he served as the leader of the Night Guard of Hyrule Castle and has strong leadership ability. But he doesn't like to talk. Rogers and others walked into the meeting room. Natasha stood behind his left side with her hands behind her. Rogers said in a deep voice, Avengers, assemble. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Falcon. So Hawkeye was a little dissatisfied with him. Vision, all stood obediently. Loki smiled. They are all a group of children who are still wet behind the ears. Then he saw Rogers and Natasha's cold eyes looking at him. Damn. Loki cursed in a low voice and walked over dejectedly, standing with the new Avengers. Out of Link and Thor's bad taste, Loki was also forcibly dragged into the ranks of the Avengers. Rogers was about to give a lecture. Loki suddenly raised his hand. Sir, why doesn't she come over? The Sky Princess, who was sitting on the sofa and playing happily with Pepper, suddenly looked up blankly. Pepper was concentrating on building blocks. When he heard the sound, he looked up and saw Rogers and immediately shouted happily, I'm here. He flew over and landed on the ground with a thud. Standing solemnly at Loki's feet, with his back straight, he was like a new recruit with a bow. Pepper was not among them at all, but he thought it was fun, so he joined them forcibly. This made Rogers very embarrassed. Vision asked cutely, I heard that the silver-haired Zelda is also going to train here, isn't she? Midona on Link's shoulder said, she's a princess. She is of noble status. She can't be like you, standing in line and being taught a lesson by Rogers and Natasha like a new soldier. Be careful of Link's anger, because Link will personally train her abilities. Link nodded. He and the Sky Princess almost destroyed the Avengers building, which made Tony very distressed. So they can only practice at the base. The new abilities must be stabilized as soon as possible, otherwise they will be like a child who missed the best period to learn a language and completely lose their language ability. The Sky Princess's new dark energy will never be controlled. Thanks to Lily Aquarius for the support of 200 starting coins. Chapter 346. The Vase Princess is working hard. As for how to train the new batch of Avengers, Rogers and Natasha were also troubled. Should they line up, clean their rooms, run in circles, and shout slogans like new recruits? That would be too stupid. So after the two of them discussed, they decided to prepare a set of teaching methods for each of the new Avengers abilities. Let Scarlet Witch control her Scarlet power, lift Tony's luxury car, fly it into the sky, and then tear it apart. Let Quicksilver do a high-speed figure eight among a bunch of densely packed poles. Let Falcon master the skills of wings and air attacks. Let Vision use the Mind Stone to release lasers and exercise the ability to emit energy. As for Pepper and Rogers, he didn't care. First, he couldn't take care of them. Second, Pepper was easy to cry and had a soft temper. Rogers couldn't let such a little guy run to fight for the Earth. Loki joining the Avengers was just a joke of Link and Thor. They certainly have their own specialties and different training methods. But there is one thing that all of them need to train. That is physical fitness and strength training. Do I need push-ups so fast? Quicksilver was doing push-ups on the ground, so fast that after images appeared. Natasha shouted, "No superpowers." Quicksilver was a little scared of this beautiful big sister, so he quickly slowed down. Next to him was Falcon, who was honestly carrying out the orders of Rogers and Natasha. The only funny thing was that Pepper was jumping on his back, and no one knew what he was doing. Loki suddenly transformed and ran to the restaurant in the base to sell drinks and be lazy. Vision was born not long ago, and his physical fitness was strong. He regarded push-ups as a game and happily went up and down. But she saw the Scarlet Witch on the side with a sad face, holding her arms with difficulty. For the purpose of getting along with the group, Vision also pretended to be unable to bear it, and seemed to be doing push-ups with difficulty. Why do we have to train this? The Scarlet Witch frowned. Rogers and Natasha were usually of good temper, but they were not gentle people after all. A soldier and an agent, they were very serious during the training. Compared with such a depressing and distressing atmosphere, Scarlet Witch looked at Link and the three Zeldas. From time to time, exclamations and laughter came from Link, and a beautiful light flashed from time to time. It was more like playing than training. Scarlet Witch envied. Link is still gentle. Zelda also observed the training of the Avengers in the distance at this time, and secretly said to Link, "I feel that their training is so stupid." It was indeed quite stupid. Link also nodded silently. In his opinion, it would be better to practice fighting each other directly. Of course, he also knew the difficulties of Rogers and Natasha. They had experienced a lot of things, but it was still the first time to train such a group of talented people. There were many inexperiences and unfamiliarities. Natasha and Rogers sighed helplessly. Compared with Vision and the others, Sky Princess made much smoother progress. Link has only one method. You release energy, control energy, and get familiar with energy as much as you can. If something goes wrong, I will take over and solve it. Moreover, he is more fond of the Sky Princess. When he encounters a little progress, even if it is a small area, he will applaud loudly to encourage her. The two princesses also work hard to cheer for the Sky Princess. Therefore, the Sky Princess has always maintained a good confidence, and the level of controlling the internal dark energy is making rapid progress every day. Compared with the dark energy, the Sky Princess prefers to call the energy in her body the power of the Starry Night. Because the moves she wields have one thing in common, that is, in the dark curtain without light, a star-like brilliance suddenly bursts out. The light attribute in her body, because of the impact of Ganon's curse, is reversed into the dark energy that coexists with it in opposition. Then in this pure dark curtain, light bursts out again. This is what the goddess Hylia said, that light and darkness are originally one. In the past few days, Link has figured out several skills for the Sky Princess, based on her ability characteristics. And at Zelda's strong request, She gave her a name, and the name is very strange. Two microscopic stars spun at high speed from the black curtain, which could attack or hover around the body to defend. Zelda named this skill Dual Star System. The power of the Starry Night formed a black curtain, carrying a little incandescent light, sprinting forward, and when approaching the enemy, it exploded with light. Zelda called it Supernova Explosion. The power of the Starry Night gathered in front of her, and the starlight in the black curtain hit a point in the center, suddenly bursting out a beam of high-intensity light, shooting forward, similar to Vision's light attack. Zelda named it Gamma Ray Burst. Link and the other two princesses' smiles became more and more stiff. This completely aroused Zelda's enthusiastic interest in naming skills. She also named Link's two unnamed super skills. The power of the clone, the sword blades touched, the two identical energies came into contact, forming a vortex that converged into an uncontrollable bursting light ball. With Link's personality, he would only call it a white light ball. Zelda gave it a cooler name, Divine Light Strike. Besides sweating, Link was actually somewhat relieved. He was afraid that Zelda would follow the previous naming logic and name the white light ball Big Bang. Link's physical attributes reversed, and he summoned his clone. Two completely identical energies collided and condensed, forming a black vortex that created a pitch black flame that could quickly burn three sky carriers. Zelda called it Sanction from the Sky. The Washan princess secretly complained to Link that this skill name had a villain flavor. But the pitch black flame that seemed to be able to burn through the earth did look like a villain's move. Putting aside Zelda's subtle names, the Sky Princess brought Link a lot of surprises. From the current point of view, the Sky Princess's attack method is actually a rare pure energy release. With the Washan Princess, one is close combat and the other is long range, which is a good match. As for Zelda, she has some strange weapons developed by Tony or herself. Basically, as MK develops several generations, Asuka will follow up with several generations. The three princesses now have some fighting power and are no longer simply protected by Link. Future enemies will become stronger and stronger, and the reinforcement of the princess's defense will allow Link to fight with more peace of mind. The Sky Princess in front of him waved her fingers, and the twinkling lights in the dark were fleeting. Of course, after discovering that she had basically mastered the new power of the Starry Night, the Sky Princess ran over excitedly, took Link's hand, and smiled. "I can finally fight with you, and I won't be a drag." Link. When Link heard that the Sky Princess wanted to fight with him, this sentence made him feel disappointed. "You are a princess, okay? Can you stop thinking about fighting and killing all the time? Just let me protect you." Link felt a deep headache for the Sky Princess who was so enthusiastic about fighting in front of him. It's over. The princess's safety is even more precarious. Chapter 347 Aggressive. Roger's face was rather stiff, and he was very dissatisfied with the content of today's training. So he asked Natasha, "How do you think our group became qualified Avengers?" As a result, Natasha gave Rogers a rare look of contempt. "We were not qualified. We were forced to do something." Roger's face was embarrassed. "That's right. A team put together by chance. Thor was not there at that time. We were in an empty New York, fighting a group of monsters with Hulk genes and Ganon's curse. I remember that battle was very hard. Link almost died." Natasha rubbed her shoulders, still a little painful. Quicksilver quit halfway through the training and planned to skip class with his sister. He directly turned on the teleportation to escape and ended up knocking Natasha over. Quicksilver chased Natasha with ice cream in his hand to apologize for the whole afternoon. "Maybe we can ask Tony to borrow a few robots and practice fighting with these kids directly." Hearing this suggestion, Rogers nodded. After all, neither he, Tony, nor Banner had ever received proper warrior training, and they were all trained in actual combat. In this way, he could also relieve some pressure. These young people are not easy to mess with. Each one is more powerful than the other. Only Falcon is obedient. "Tony, why did that guy leave so hastily today? Normally, he would at least point fingers at our work and make us so angry that we would run away." Natasha's expression was a little complicated. "Little Pepper told me. Recently, the government has come to the door again. After Hydra infiltrated SHIELD, the World Security Council disintegrated. It sounds very gratifying. After all, That organization once irresponsibly dropped a nuclear bomb on New York. But power will never be a vacuum. In response to the increasingly abnormal events around the world, countries have formed a more radical organization, the Global Cooperative Defense Committee. This organization has repeatedly complained about the Avengers. The Avengers are not regulated or restricted by any country, which is a headache for the Global Cooperative Defense Committee. Now that Nick and S.H.I.E.L.D. have retreated to the backstage, the Avengers have to deal with external relations with the skilled Tony Stark. And Tony seems to be overwhelmed by this somewhat aggressive organization. Iron Man may seem perverse on the surface, but cooperation is the prerequisite anyway. The Global Defense Coordination Committee is different. They have never given in on their demands. That is, all the members of the Avengers must be supervised and controlled by them. Pepper sat down on the table and turned on the TV, ready to find a thrilling horror movie, and then curl up in Roger's arms and watch it with his eyes closed. As a result, he turned to the news channel. There happened to be a close-up of Tony's face, full of anger. Well, Tony is very angry. Pepper's two tentacles drooped. This also attracted the attention of Rogers and Natasha. Mr. Stark, some people believe that nuclear deterrence is a reason for ensuring overall peace in today's world, but nuclear weapons are monitored and mutually restrained. And almost everyone in your Avengers is more dangerous than a nuclear weapon. Here, Natasha complained, but not me. But you never accept monitoring and control. What are your ideas? Tony said in a deep voice. Ideas? Think about it yourself. If a fierce alien army invades, and the Earth is in danger of destruction, do you think that at this time, the Avengers must obtain approval from relevant departments to save the world? Otherwise, you go and ask those alien invaders not to invade the Earth without your approval. There was a sparse laughter after the hearing, but the leading official didn't care about Tony's counterattack, but continued to question, are you, the Avengers, going to be superior and ignore the law? You arbitrarily provoke wars, destroy a city, act recklessly, and in the lofty name of saving the world. If you are really kind and righteous people, why don't you accept the supervision and control of the people all over the world? What's the difference between you and pirates, terrorists, and anarchists? Tony spread his hands and took a deep breath. Pirates? Terrorists? Do you use these words to refer to the Avengers who have saved the Earth several times? The leading official, however, still had a cold face. Save the world? There are also a few aliens in your Avengers, Link and Thor. Who knows if the alien army over New York will be a fast erected and acted by you. Bang. Tony slammed his fist on the table. He was rarely so angry in public. The last time was because of Happy's injury. Not only Tony, but also Rogers and Natasha in front of the TV, even though they both had psychological qualities far superior to ordinary people, were extremely angry at this moment. They fought desperately, but suffered such malicious speculation and slander. Natasha said in a deep voice, it seems that Tony is already at a loss. Tony is very good at handling public relations, but this time he was defeated. Because the Global Defense Coordination Committee never had the intention to discuss and communicate with him. Every sentence they said was repeated in a constant manner. The Avengers must be controlled by the Global Defense Coordination Committee, otherwise they are an evil organization that destroys the world. The leading official stood up. Since Mr. Stark, no, Iron Man has no intention of having a positive exchange with the peace-loving people all over the world, then let's end this meeting. He looked at Tony with an angry face indifferently. We will not allow such an uncertain factor that may threaten the people of the world to exist. If you don't cooperate, there will be only one result. The Avengers disband. Or he. A dark red light flashed in the eyes of the leading official. Tony sat back in his chair without saying a word. He rolled up his sleeves and looked at his watch. He felt a little cold in his heart. The speech he just made was an ultimatum. The Global Defense Coordination Committee will take tougher measures in the near future. What made Tony even colder was some information he got from his smartwatch. This meeting was broadcast live around the world. Jarvis helped Tony capture some representative opinions of the commentators. Most of the comments were hostile to the Avengers. The ones who really destroyed world peace were the Avengers. They were directing and acting in their own heroic dramas, but in fact, it was to put the Avengers above the people. I'm a New Yorker. New York does not welcome the Avengers. I'm an Earthling. The Earth does not welcome the Avengers. Tony was a little frightened when he saw it. Jarvis had already analyzed the public sentiment and said to Tony, "Sir, because of the frequent disasters in the past 2 years, the public is in a very panic-stricken atmosphere, which leads to everyone feeling insecure. Some people are able to call on the public to slander and attack the Avengers under the banner of peace and security." Tony interrupted Jarvis. "If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 348 Cannon Puppet. The people from the Global Defense Coordination Committee had already left. Tony sat there alone, with frequent flashes of camera lights on his body and eyes. He looked a little lonely. Rogers looked at the lonely Tony on TV and couldn't help saying, although his personality is annoying, but Tony Stark is indeed a respectable person. "Who is he?" A jerky voice came. Rogers and Natasha looked back and saw Link coming out after washing up, with wet blonde hair, or thin shirt and jeans. Link's expression was a little gloomy. Pepper Puff flew over happily and bumped into Link's arms, shaking his two little hands and saying to Link, "Brave master, brave master." "Tony seems very unhappy." Link touched Peppa's head, and there was no smile on his face. Natasha knew that Link was talking about the chief official, so she searched for his name. She looked up and answered, "Chairman of the Global Defense Coordination Committee, Joseph." Link didn't say much, but the second sentence scared Rogers and Natasha. Link said in a deep voice, "I want to kill him." Natasha smiled in surprise. "I wanted to." Link turned and left. "There's something wrong with Joseph. He's controlled by Ganon." Rogers was shocked. "You really want to go? Don't be impulsive." He hurried over to stop Link. Link rarely spoke again, turned back and looked at Rogers seriously. "There are Ganon's people in the Global Defense Coordination Committee. This is very serious. Ganon will provoke a war between the secular world and the Avengers." Rogers also knew the seriousness of the matter. Last time, someone was controlled by Ganon, which led to the Avengers and New York being almost destroyed by nuclear bombs. This time is even worse. The officials controlled by Ganon have a higher status and the threat is even greater. But no matter how serious the matter is, Rogers must stop Link. If he rushed to kill Joseph at this sensitive time, it will only lead to Link's downfall and will completely ignite the hostility of the outside world towards the Avengers. Rogers pulled Peppa together to try to dissuade Link. "Please, let's discuss a countermeasure first." "Calm down," Link said seriously. "The countermeasure is, I will sneak attack, succeed in one strike, and leave no trace." Natasha hurried to find Zelda and the others. Otherwise, Link would turn from a superhero to a real terrorist if he went back and forth. The three princesses hurried over and said in unison, "Link can't go." Midona also flew to Link's shoulder listlessly with "Yeah." The two little guys were just about to paint Link's horse pink, but they were caught by Princess Washang. After chasing for a long time, Princess Washang let him go. Link winked at Midona. He felt exhausted after saying a few words just now. Midona said, "Link believes that he must act as soon as possible, otherwise Joseph can find an excuse at any time to launch a war against the Avengers, or even provoke a global war." Natasha and Rogers were silent. The demonized Joseph is indeed a bomb that can explode at any time. Although Link's reaction seems reckless, it is indeed the most correct method. Princess Washang said quietly, "Link, you overlooked one thing. Since Ganon can bewitch Joseph, then Ganon can also do it to others. If you kill one Joseph, another more difficult puppet will emerge." Link was stunned. Indeed, Joseph is just an influential puppet, and the real source of the conflict is Ganon. But Ganon is nowhere to be found, and Link has only fought him less than twice so far. It is too easy for Ganon to interfere with the Earthlings. Zelda smiled and said, "What are you confused about? Have you forgotten that there is Goddess Hylia to consult at any time now?" Link suddenly realized, nodded, and hurriedly went to visit the statue of Goddess Hylia with everyone. Rogers and Natasha breathed a sigh of relief. In New York, at Joseph's home. Outside, he is a calm and even indifferent chairman of the Global Defense Committee, but at home, he is just a worried father. Sitting at the head of the bed, his beloved daughter Jenny was lying on the bed, wearing a respirator, with tubes inserted into her body, surrounded by messy pipes and medical instruments, mumbling and thinking. Outside are nurses and doctors on duty 24 hours a day. Incompatible with this pile of solemn medical instruments, this room is an innocent pink, with many dolls and a super gorgeous dressing table. The overall layout is like a princess room. Jenny has a strange disease and her organs are failing. After 2 years of painful all-round medical treatment, her condition is still getting worse. According to the child's wish, she returned to her home after 2 years. Her gorgeous bedroom was transformed into a medical room that can sustain her life. The innocent room is in cruel contrast to the haggard girl who looks like a skeleton and has sparse hair on the bed. It made Joseph very painful. After gently coaxing the child to sleep, Joseph left without even daring to breathe. But he knew that in less than half an hour, the child would wake up again due to the pain and cry for a while with a hoarse voice that was completely inconsistent with her age. But if her eyes found her parents, she would force herself to endure the pain and show a heart-wrenching smile. Joseph pressed his eye sockets with his knuckles and quietly closed the door. His eyes flashed a strange red. After simply instructing the nurse, he returned to his studio. He walked in, closed the door, and the darkroom was dark with the curtains drawn. But Joseph did not turn on the light. Soon, in the dark room in front of him, as his eyes adapted to the dark environment, he gradually saw something. In front of his work table, sat a red rotten skeleton, with a slender head and a ferocious horn in the middle, pressing the 2 eye sockets to the edge of the front. Joseph's shoulders began to tremble. Master Ganon, obey your orders. For my child, I'm willing to give you the whole world, please. The red rotten skeleton nodded weakly. So he stood up. There were inexplicable screams around him. The piercing noise made Joseph feel like a malfunctioning machine. His muscles began to spasm. Bang, bang, bang. His heart was beating violently, as if it would break like a tomato at any time. The red skull was like a ghost, crossing the table and coming directly in front of Joseph. Suddenly, the skull broke apart, exploded into a pile of bone fragments, and pierced into Joseph's body. Joseph screamed miserably, and his voice gradually became inhuman. But outside the door, there was no sound at all. It was so quiet that it seemed as if there was no living person inside. Chapter 349, The Traces of Pharaoh Dragon. The chapter name is wrong again. Link, Zelda and others hurried over to find the statue of Goddess Hylia. The Avengers building is located in the center of New York City and is densely populated. It is inconvenient for Link and other Avengers to go out, and they are easily harassed by the media, so they move to the more remote and quiet New York base to live together. The statue of Goddess Hylia can only be moved from the New York building to the New York base. After all, her carrier is just a crystal statue, so she is a little dissatisfied with being moved around. Link didn't know whether to laugh or cry about the goddess' temper. He could only promise that this was the last time to move her, and he would not move her easily again in the future. According to the goddess's wishes, the crystal statue was placed in a nearby clearing in the woods. Zelda, Link and Peppa's room were guarded on the side. So Link's residence was the farthest from the base. Link came to the statue of the goddess and thought out his doubts from the bottom of his heart. Because of Link's influence, Rogers and Natasha behind him also learned from the princesses and bowed respectfully. Zelda asked more carefully, Supreme Goddess Hylia, if you can hear my call, please tell the truth to the lost mortals. What can be done to prevent the inhabitants of the earth from being deceived by Ganon? When Zelda finished her last word, the goddess statue glowed slightly, and everyone felt peaceful, as if they had come to a temple on a cold mountain. Natasha and Rogers were staunch atheists, but even so, they knew that the goddess statue in front of them had a wisdom that was difficult to describe with the human brain. The will of the goddess resounded in the brains of everyone in front of them. Child. Ganon's power is not enough to control the souls of others, but the dark side of people's own hearts will listen to Ganon's whispers. Suddenly, light condensed in front of Link, and a recorder appeared. The noble and bright soul is something that Ganon can never invade. Natasha said bravely, Goddess. I don't know what Hyrule is like, but on Earth, people with noble souls have always been a minority. Perhaps we can use a more technical way, just like blocking signals, to block the connection between Ganon and ordinary people's hearts. This however, the light on the statue of Goddess Hylia suddenly dissipated. Natasha was terrified. Did she anger the gods by speaking without authorization? Natasha was a little panicked. Generally speaking, if you anger the gods, you will be punished by heaven. Will the gods bring disaster because of her offense? The Sky Princess waved her hand. Natasha, calm down. Goddess Hylia is not the same as the god you know. Just like, the dark energy in my body is not the same as Ganon's dark power. She explained and explained, but ended up confusing herself. Zelda turned around and said, the goddess has told us how to reduce Ganon's influence on the earth. Only Link and the three of us heard it. Although we can't completely get rid of Ganon's interference on the earth, we can greatly reduce it. Natasha breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Roger shook his head. This feeling is really strange. Then what is the way to reduce Ganon's influence on the earth's human beings? Midona pulled Fang, which was wrapped around Link's neck, and lifted it up, shouting, of course, use the noble and pure soul to infect the earthlings, and help them fight against Ganon's evil thoughts. Now we have to rely on our Fang. Fang was sleeping comfortably, but was woken up by Midona. She tilted her head in confusion. She didn't understand what Midona meant. Rogers and Natasha also blinked. Sacrifice Fang. Fang was startled, glared at Rogers and Natasha, and then blinked her big eyes pitifully, and stared at Link. Link took Yaya from Midona, and gently touched her little head. Yaya is so well behaved now. If it were in the past, Rogers and Natasha's hairstyles would definitely be burned into Mediterranean. Princess Washang explained quietly, Yaya is Oolong, one of the three dragons. The dragons all have clean souls and noble wills. Their soul fluctuations can protect the hearts of the people on Earth. Yaya listened to Princess Washang's words, and then nodded with satisfaction. Yes, Yaya is so powerful. Now, the three dragons, Oolong and Nilong, have been rescued by Link. Only the last Pharaoh dragon is left. Midona snatched the recorder given by the goddess Hylia from Link's hand, put it in her mouth, and blew it randomly. She said, that guy Nilong has been looking for Pharaoh Dragon for so many days, but he still can't find it. It's useless. We should do it ourselves. She blew a few harsh sounds, and Link rubbed his ears. Midona held up the recorder. No, this is the Soul Echo recorder given to Link by the goddess Hylia. The sound it makes can be heard by any life on the other side of the earth. As long as the Pharaoh Dragon hears the sound of the flute and feeds back its will to us through the echo of the flute, we will know its approximate location. She blew it twice more, frowned, and handed it to Link with disdain. This thing is not easy to handle. Zelda tried to touch Fangaya, but Fangaya dodged. Zelda looked at Fangaya and said, as long as the three-headed dragons are in normal life, their soul power can resist most of Ganon's will from affecting humans on Earth. She frowned again. So, Pharaoh Dragon, the strongest among the dragons, is also in a state of imprisonment. His situation is not good. We must find him quickly. Since being rescued, Nilong has been flying around the world. It made a lot of news, and it looked like a good omen from an oriental country, so it attracted a lot of Asians. Because his body is too huge, and he doesn't like to hide, nor does he learn to shrink like Yaya. So wherever he flies, it's the headlines. Zelda can easily find Nilong's trace. He is now in South America. Link took a deep breath and blew the recorder. A piece of music that is not complicated, but beautiful and quiet enough floated out and rippled in the air. Even the Scarlet Witch and Vision, who were hiding in the base and speaking ill of Quicksilver, heard the faint music. And the silent fluctuations are transmitted farther, even in the South Pole and the North Pole. The faint sound of the flute echoes. Tony returned to the Avengers building tiredly at this moment. He heard a faint sound in his ear, so he suspected that Damie had secretly played with the fire extinguisher again. Chapter 350 Rainforest Crisis. The next day, Joseph returned to his office with a tired face. The secretary poured him a cup of coffee in surprise and asked carefully, Mr. Chairman, how are you? Joseph's face was pale, even with a hint of blue-black. But he seemed to be in a good mood because his daughter gave him a kiss this morning. And the nurse said it was incredible because Jenna's condition had improved significantly overnight. Joseph thought his output was very worthwhile. Your back. The secretary looked at Joseph's back. He looked like he was 30 years older, with a bulge on his back. How did he become hunchbacked overnight? The nurse who was watching Jenny had two puzzled things this morning. Joseph's smile faded, and he returned to his usual coldness, staring at the secretary. Seeing her to fall over, she said, "Did I give you too little work?" The secretary left in a hurry. Joseph was alone in the office, touching his back. He wore very thick clothes today, airtight and even waterproof fabrics. The office was so quiet that he could feel two heartbeats. One came from his own body. This heart, which was in its prime, was beating unhealthily and disorderly. Behind him, wrapped in thick cloth, was a flat spider the size of a plate. The spider's body was made up of broken bones and sticky blood. It had a violent and heavy heartbeat. It looked hideous and disgusting. Even Tony would scream if he saw it. The spider's 8 legs were inserted into Joseph's back. The wounds around it were festering, and the skin on his back was a bluish black color. If a doctor examined Joseph's body at this moment, he would definitely find out. Joseph's heart, which was beating disorderly, had no blood flowing through it. The blood circulation of this heart was replaced by the hideous spider behind him. The mouth and mouth clamps of this blood-red spider were deeply inserted into Joseph's spine. He withdrew his attention. In one night, he had already gotten used to the new organ behind him. Joseph began to draft a document in person in front of the computer. Analysis of the tough measures that must be taken against the Avengers' non-cooperation. Suddenly, he touched his chin again and remembered something, so he called the highest level commander of the self-prepared army of the Global Defense Coordination Committee. Joseph said in a deep voice, "It's time to destroy that blue dragon." Link was already on the fighter plane. He and Rogers and others were flying to Congo, Africa. Feral Ung had sent his feedback. At present, he was imprisoned in a tropical rainforest in Congo. According to the sound coming from the voice, Feral Ung's vital signs were already very weak. This made Link worried. He had witnessed the death of the dragon once. The last time was Chunshan, because of his inability, which left him with some shadows. Ye lay obediently on Link's shoulder. She seemed to be able to see what Link was thinking. She stretched out her slender tongue and licked Link's cheek. She called twice. Link touched Ye's little head, and the little guy squinted his eyes happily. Fortunately, he knew that Fang was the reincarnation of Orlon, otherwise he would have to blame himself for the rest of his life for that battle. But, this Fang and the strong and majestic fire dragon Orlon, except for the color, don't look like the same dragon at all. Link didn't bring any of the new members of the Avengers this time, and there was a lot of wailing. Only the old team, Banner, Natasha, and Rogers. The Princess Group and Pepper are must-haves. This is the first time in a long time that Pepper has been adventuring with Link again, so he is very excited. He jumped on Roger's head. Tony is not here either. This guy has to deal with a lot of problems recently. For example, the accusations from all walks of life and the difficulties of the investigation team of the Global Defense Coordination Committee. Although Tony is always frivolous, in this matter, the Avengers can't find a more suitable candidate than Tony except for the two Zeldas. Quicksilver had wanted to use his high speed to slip onto the fighter plane in an instant, but he was caught by Link. He threw him down the same way he rushed up. At this moment, he had already reached the sky above the rainforest. The situation here was indeed problematic. The sky was filled with dark clouds, thunder roared through the sky, and there was wind and rain. Moreover, Link and Zelda, who were sensitive to cannon, immediately sensed that there was a large amount of cannon pollution here. The fighter plane had been modified by Tony's suggestion and had a strong anti-lightning device. But it was in the insurance period. It still landed at the edge of the rainforest. Roger said in a deep voice, "Get ready for battle." He took out his shield from his backpack and was directly pissed off. The shield was painted pink and there was a strange looking kitten painted on it, but it looked more like a weird sea urchin with 5 legs. Rogers roared, "Who did it?" There was a tremor on his shoulder, and Pepper put his 2 little hands in his mouth, very scared. Rogers immediately reacted and realized that the culprit was the green little life on his shoulder. The anger on Roger's face disappeared, and he laughed hurriedly. Haha, the painting is really beautiful. I'll buy you some new crayons one day. Peppa was bribed by the new crayons, and became happy again. Natasha muttered, "This is more like a son." Link walked out. The Hylians didn't have the habit of holding umbrellas. They were soaked in the rain. Natasha said, "3 Zeldas, why don't you wait in the plane?" The 3 Zeldas shook their heads, and said with a smile, "It's okay." Link looked around, and continued to play the recorder. The melodious flute sounded. He heard the faint response of the Pharaoh Dragon again. But this time, the flute sound not only attracted the Pharaoh Dragon, but also attracted a large number of monsters entrenched here. Peppa hurriedly summoned pieces of armor to fit his body. Oh. Peppa is ready to fight. Link could feel a slight vibration coming from the ground. Suddenly, dense arrows shot from a distance, forming a screen of electricity. On the left, trees fell down, making a piercing sound, and 2 golden centaurs came galloping. On the right, the sound of tree roots breaking in the land and soil was heard, and a bulge rushed over. A giant green snake covered with barbs broke out of the ground, and spurted out a large amount of poison from its mouth. Princess Washan whispered, "How hospitable." The sound of swords began. Princess Washan drew an arrow blade of light, and rushed towards the 2 violent golden centaurs like a meteor. Link's hair was slightly raised, and the lightning burst out fiercely. Banner roared, transformed into Hulk and suddenly jumped up, rushing towards the barbed poisonous green snake. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.